On the battlefield, where smoke filled the sky, a general raised his hand and shouted, "Stop the traitors! Catch them all!" Raml and Ghost quickly ran over, immediately joining up with the group ahead and entering the fight. Suddenly, a firm step echoed as the king appeared, holding his sword tightly with both hands, his face burning with rage. He spoke, "No one here is leaving now." When the soldiers saw him, they cheered, "It's His Majesty the King. Hurry, we must go support him." Sylvia pointed her blade forward, frowning as she questioned, "Old King, are you planning to attack us?" Raml frowned slightly, assessing the unfavorable situation. He thought quietly, "So it's the king of Baron Killa himself blocking our path. This is bad." In the original game, players took on the role of the Demon King in the castle, commanding an army of demons to launch an attack. On the map, Baron Killa was the toughest level to get through. Having the king appear surrounded by his soldiers, this is a death sentence. Even in later stages of the game, you could only overcome it by overwhelming force. The real challenge came from the king's skill. He carried his sword and commanded his army to attack the Demon King's forces. His skill, Legion Command, forced the entire army to increase their morale and strength with no conditions needed, which also boosted his own stats. On top of that, the king could identify weaknesses in the enemy army and exploit them, tearing apart the Demon King's forces. He turned that place into a desolate wasteland with smoke and dust filling the air. Raml looked up and saw the determined expression on Herfer's face. He thought to himself, if this guy goes after the twin spirits, it'll be a huge problem, but given the current situation, I can't take him on directly. Exhausted, he gritted his teeth, trying to think things through. How did the game developers design this bug? But on the other hand, the sky was changing, and now the old king was facing the enemy's army alone. Rammo was puzzled. Why has everything suddenly gone quiet? The old man, with a stern look, raised his sword, sensing a strange, eerie aura coming from Rammo. He thought, what is that? What are those things? His hand gripping the sword grew heavy and started to tremble. The king couldn't believe it. How could a mere bodyguard from an envoy exude such a terrifying presence? The Demon King's army has grown this strong. No, it can't be. He looked up at Rammo with growing fear in his heart. Could it be? Had he really come? Rammo saw the king's expression and his own eyes narrowed like a question mark forming in his mind. At that moment, the old man was shaking uncontrollably. Before Rammo could even react, the king suddenly spat blood. Right in front of the crowd, Rammo and the guards of the division, the king collapsed. Ghost, standing with his hand on his hip, was surprised. Ha! The old king was now lying motionless on the ground, no longer showing any signs of life. The officer looked down at him with sadness, then frowned and gritted his teeth as he called out, "Your Majesty, remember when we were by the cliff? You waved your hand like this. If you do that, I'll forgive your cowardice this time." This made him look up in shock. Now seeing the king like this, his mind echoed the king's encouraging words. "Don't be afraid. What you see is a precious talent granted to us by the true gods. Be proud, then find a way to use it." His eyes widened and his pupils shrank. "You have the same gift as I do." The officer was furious. A murderous aura radiated from his eyes as he pointed directly at Rammo and shouted, "Kill every last one of them." Hearing this, one of the soldiers spoke up to advise against it. "But they are from the delegation, and there are people from the elven clan among them. We'll make enemies of the elves." Before the soldier could finish speaking, dark purple energy began to swirl around his hand. What is this? No, before he could understand what was happening, the soldiers were immediately taken over by the energy, which manipulated them into releasing the same murderous aura. The soldiers moved toward the delegation, causing them to step back in alarm. One of the guards from the delegation noticed something was off. Seeing the soldiers charge at them, the captain quickly shouted a warning. "Protect the ambassador." The sword swung down with great force, but the older brother raised his blade to block it, gritting his teeth as he said, "This strength, it never weakens from start to finish. They're all being controlled by something." Raml, observing from behind, thought to himself, "Controlled. Clearly these soldiers have been buffed too. Could there be someone else here with a commander's skill? No way. That doesn't happen in the game." He stepped forward and muttered, "Looks like." Raml rubbed his wrist, his sharp eyes grinding as he watched the battle unfold ahead of him. "Guess I'll have to rely on myself." Just then, his second brother placed a hand on his shoulder and stepped in front of him. Raising his sword, he said, "You're the war hero of Linma, so it's up to you to protect the distinguished guest and help them break through the encirclement." Raml wanted to move forward, but the large man behind him held him back, leaving him helpless as he watched them charge into battle. "But you." The older brother blocked a soldier's sword with his own and turned to give him a command. "Protecting the envoy is the responsibility His Majesty the Emperor entrusted to us. Even if we have to give our lives, it's not a loss." Rammo bared his teeth, grabbed the soldier's armor, and with a swift motion, threw him toward the group of enemies ahead. Taking advantage of the moment when their enemies couldn't get back up due to their injuries, he turned and shouted loudly, "Third brother, break through the encirclement. The rest of you, cover our backs. Unless they step over my dead body, they won't be able to move forward." Sylvia slung her sword over her shoulder, her voice filled with frustration. I can't believe the demon tribe came to their rescue," she muttered under her breath before quickly walking off. "Sis, let's go," Herver said hesitantly, clearly worried. "Wait a second." Ibet grabbed Rammo and hurried after the twin spirits. "This is such a pain. No more hesitation. Let's move," Vera urged, holding the wrist of another spirit. "We need to hurry." At that moment, a few soldiers controlled by dark energy, their eyes glowing red, charged toward Vera and a platinum-haired spirit who were standing nearby. The older brothers quickly arrived to join the fight. The second brother grinned and spoke with excitement. "Big brother, this is the first time we've fought together on the battlefield. When we get back to the Demon King's city, we'll definitely drink to celebrate." The older brother, equally eager, replied, "In that case, this round should be on third brother." Just then, the spirit soldiers surged forward with incredible momentum, surrounding the Black Bear group in the mill. The older brother shouted loudly, "If we make it out of here alive." They threw themselves into the battle of all their strength, shouting in unison for the Emperor. As soon as the words left their mouths, a figure approached them. A soldier, radiating with a strong magical aura, stepped forward. The strange appearance of the officer left everyone in shock. "It's that guy." He stood in the midst of the Demon King's soldiers, his eyes fixed on Vera's group as he muttered in a deep voice, "Start." He raised his sword high and charged toward Vera, saying, "Starting with you all." He was too frightened to dodge in time and cried out loudly, "Ah!" Luckily, the ox managed to block the attack with its hammer, struggling to hold it off. "Ah!" It squinted and glanced at the soldier, waiting for him to let his guard down. Seizing the moment, the soldier swung his sword, knocking the hammer out of the ox's hands, sending it flying. With the overwhelming force of his attack, the ox panicked, shut its eyes tightly, and found itself lying flat on the ground, too scared to move. At that moment, a thin trail of black smoke began to rise from its body. The soldier sneered and cursed. "A weak shadow." Then he moved closer and added, "Starting with you, the useless one, is fine." He pointed the tip of his sword at the ox's head, still lying on the ground. Just then, a flash of light appeared in the ox's eyes, and the image of someone it remembered began to urge it on. "I still need to go home." It remembered the moment when it held a flower, walking toward the girl standing by the beach. As soon as she turned around, her gentle expression completely captivated its heart. Soul-binding. Suddenly, the girl's face transformed into the cruel officer's, startling the ox. It quickly sprang to its feet and punched him away with all its strength. Clenching its fists, it was filled with fierce determination. "No one can stop me from going back to get married." Meanwhile, Rammo and the others had run out of the fortress. They were exhausted but relieved, letting out a deep breath. Phew. Herver wiped the sweat off his brow and grinned. "We're safer now." But Sylvia, still holding her sword, disagreed, saying, "No, sis, we're not safe yet." She pointed her sword directly at Rammo, and Ghost said, "If you don't deal with these two pursuers from the Demon King's army, how can you go home?" Hearing that, she looked confused. Herver turned to her sister and asked, "Sylvia, what are you trying to do?" "Go home." "Why would you want to go home?" Sylvia glanced at her before snapping back. "So you still want to return to the Demon King's army?" Herver, slightly puzzled, whispered cautiously, "Why wouldn't I be able to go back?" Sylvia's expression wavered as she raised her tear-filled eyes to Herver and stammered, Sister, do you really believe that she's been influenced by the Demon King, that her thoughts are completely shaped by them, and now she doesn't even know how to live without it?" Upon hearing that, Herver's face darkened. She clenched her fist and shouted, "What are you talking about?" With unwavering determination, she declared, "That would never happen. I've stayed in the Demon King's army to gather intelligence and steal important secrets for everyone." As soon as she finished, silence filled the air. Raml and Ibet exchanged glances, realization dawning on their faces, and they both exclaimed in unison, "Oh." The sword in Sylvia's hand gleamed with a strong, determined light. "Looks like we have no choice but to settle this through battle." Ibet, trying to lighten the mood, forced a smile. "Isn't this a bit too dramatic? Actually, we're on the same side. I've been undercover in the Demon King's army too." After hearing this, Sylvia immediately felt suspicious. "What did you just say?" The ghost quickly defended herself. "I'm also someone sent by the Demon Lord to infiltrate the Demon King's army. Lord Lilith, I'm sure you've heard of her name, right?" Rammo, who was standing nearby, couldn't help but break out in a sweat as he watched them reveal their identities. Oh my god, this is an unexpected twist. He thought back to the image of Lilith sitting arrogantly with her legs crossed on a high throne. The Demon Lord represented seduction and lust in hell, but why would she send her of all people? At that moment, the stone on Herver's neck began to glow with a green light, but she still hesitated, probing with suspicion. Could it be that another demon lord is also plotting against the Gazma territory? Ibet flicked her hair with a light touch, replying cheerfully, "Not at all. Lord Lilith only wishes for Lucifer's failure, which aligns perfectly with your goal of driving out the Demon King." Sylvia placed her hands on her hips and turned to ask her older sister, "What do you think, sister?" She gently touched the stone around her neck and responded calmly, "For now, she's not lying. Besides, according to legend, Lilith is indeed the queen of ghosts. It wouldn't be wrong for her to be loyal to Lilith." Ibet waved her hand carefully, pushing Sylvia's dagger aside just a bit. "That's right, isn't it? Plus, I already know your plan. You've just been pretending not to. Otherwise, why would someone sent to observe you all be sitting around lazily every day?" The ghost moved closer, took Herver's hand, and placed it on their chest, speaking with a sincere tone. "The Demon Kings are not united. Their relationships are even more complicated than those between your countries. All you need to know is that when facing the demon army, we are on the same side." This gesture left Herver feeling a bit awkward. She frowned and carefully considered the words of the demon, realizing they weren't lying. Upon hearing this, Ibet couldn't hide her joy and tightened her grip on their hand. Sylvia, who had been watching the scene, sneered. "You should let go of her hand." Rammo, who had been silent until now, suddenly looked displeased. After a moment, he looked up with eyes full of sorrow and sighed. It's not easy for big waves to break against the shore after so long, but it's even harder to understand the human heart. At that moment, Sylvia's sharp gaze shifted toward him. If Miss Ibet shares the same goal as us then, she pressed the blade of her dagger against Rammo's throat, her face hardening as she spoke seriously. "The only one left to deal with is you." Seeing the blade near his neck, Raml flinched, his eyes widening in fear as he cried out, wait a second." He raised both hands, trying to appear sincere as he began to lie. "Hey, isn't this a bit of a coincidence? I'm actually a spy planted in the demon army." Sylvia didn't buy it and spoke with disdain. "Do you think we're idiots? Now that the situation's turned against you, you're subtly claiming to be a spy." Without a word, she immediately swung her blade to attack. "Do you really think anyone will believe you?" Rammo quickly leaned back, dodging the strike. Ibet, standing not far away with her arms crossed, remarked, "Saving you back then was just a result of the situation, but things have changed now." She then continued, analyzing Rammo's strength and identity. "Even the spell I deliberately cast to confuse you was easily blocked. You're clearly not an ordinary bodyguard. You must be an undercover soldier sent by Flem, right?" Hearing this, he was taken aback. Sylvia raised her sword, her tone serious as she locked eyes on Rammo, still dodging the attack. At this point, she wasted no time and struck down with her blade, loudly demanding, "Do you have anything else to say?" To her surprise, Rammo stopped the sword with just 2 fingers, casually replying, "At this point, there really is nothing left to say. If I can't keep hiding anymore, then I'll just reveal everything." Sylvia froze, her eyes widening in disbelief as she thought 2 fingers stopped the sword. He knelt down on one knee, flicked his hand to push the sword away, and said, "I bet I'm not just some ordinary demon guard." Pointing to himself, he grinned with complete confidence and introduced himself. "I'm the mysterious person who helped the Saintess Polly escape from the prison of the Demon King's city, the Black Knight." The 3 of them were stunned by his words. Herver's eyes wide in shock. The Black Knight used his own strength to defeat Flem. Ibet furrowed her brow, clearly puzzled. Who's this new character? Sylvia, feeling lost, muttered, "The mysterious person who saved Polly." Sylvia immediately turned to Herver and signaled, "The fact that he was able to block my attack earlier means he's no weakling." "What do you think, Sus?" Herver touched the stone on her neck and replied in surprise, he really wasn't lying. Ghost, both confused and distrustful, turned to question them. "What are you 2 talking about? He's just rambling on. Do you actually believe him?" Sylvia, frustrated, shot back, "You need to stop doubting my sister Demon. Do you really think that's why she trusts you?" Then Sylvia explained the stone's background. "The pendant on my sister's chest is a treasure from our elven tribe, the Stone of Truth. On Herver's chest was a green gem that not only provided strong mental defense, but also could distinguish lies from the truth." Ibet looked at it closely, thinking to himself, "So this is what's blocking my mind-reading ability." Still skeptical, Herver stepped forward and asked Rammo, "But I still have one more question for you. From now on, I won't control the light from the gem. If it glows blue, that means you're telling the truth." She moved closer to Rammo and began the conversation. "How were you able to hide within the Demon King's army without being detected? Are you human or a demon?" Rammo hesitated. "I remember when I first took over the Demon King's body. My soul is still that of a human, and it matches my outer appearance." He placed a hand on his chest, affirming, "I am human." Herver looked down and saw the stone glowing blue. Ibet, stunned, immediately rejected the idea. How can that be? The demonic energy around him is so pure. There's no way he's human. Herver chuckled lightly and touched the stone. Then the truth can only be one thing. She pointed directly at him and spoke, making a clear declaration herself. You're the half-blood child of a human and a demon. Sylvia, feeling unsure, spoke up. Half-breed. Ibet, hearing this, slowly started to understand. Oh, that makes sense. At this, Rammo gasped in shock. Huh? Herver shifted into her own storytelling mode. She imagined a dramatic scene and began to narrate. Your father was a demon from hell, and your mother was a young, innocent human girl. The demon became enchanted by her beauty and kidnapped her. Day after day and night after night, she ended up pregnant with an unfortunate child. In the end, despite the world's scorn, you were born as a half-breed, the offspring of a human and a demon. Rammo was left speechless, his face pale, eyes wide with horror. Don't just add extra details like that. You didn't change any of the words except for the ending, did you? Sylvia raised her hand to stop Herver and smiled. Sister, maybe there's still another possibility. She started to reshape Rammo's backstory. A powerful sorceress used forbidden magic to summon a demon. Maybe it was due to some sort of opposing theory, or maybe just for research purposes. She gave a sly smile and continued, imagining the sorceress entangling herself with the demon, holding a syringe in her hand, and made up. The forbidden sorceress Extoaxed Saksu with the summoned demon. The language was cryptic and strange, but the idea was clear. The half-breed child of a human and a demon was born. Rammo was even more horrified by this new version of the story, wanting to scream and cover his mouth. Is your version any better? Or are you just going to keep changing the story like this? Sighing with sadness, Sylvia wiped away a tear and commented, living a life like this with your background, you've surely suffered all kinds of pain, haven't you? Sylvia clasped her hands together, closed her eyes, and continued with a sympathetic expression. No wonder you're so obsessed with wiping out the Demon King's army. Raml helplessly turned his head, only to see Ibet seriously covering her mouth as she analyzed. It said that the chances of a half-human, half-demon being born are incredibly low. Even if they do survive birth, they usually die young due to their physical condition. But if they manage to live, these half-breeds will possess extraordinary talent. No wonder. The three of them performed their little improvisation, standing there, staring at Rammo. At loss for words, he could only force a smile. Ha ha ha. As the sky darkened and the full moon rose high, Rammo and the others sat around a campfire in the forest. While roasting fish over the glowing flames, Rammo sank into thought. So much had happened today. The rebellion in the kingdom of Baron Killa was clearly not part of the plan. His gaze fell on Ghost sitting across from him, and doubt crept into his mind, his previous life's gain. While there were plenty of spies among the Demon King's subordinates sent by other imperial armies, Lilith's spy had been the first. Raml furrowed his brow as he recalled the bald officer, a character who only existed in the background introduction of the main stage. Then there was the bald guy who suddenly erupted with power in the city. Luckily, he wasn't wearing a cloak, nor did he use his fists, similar to the situation where a group of gods parachuted into the game's later stages. Could it be that my actions have changed the course of the game? This isn't good news. Raml, while calculating, slowly stood up and said, That's right. I need to contact Flem to confirm what's going on in the city. The other three watched as he left without saying a word, and they looked at each other in confusion. Herver and Ibet both called out, Where are you going? Rammo smiled, scratched his head, and awkwardly replied, You guys eat first, I'm going over there to take care of something. Ibet gave him a sideways glance and thought to herself, Take care of something? Wait, why am I focusing on this word? A person next to them handed food to Ghost, saying, Hey. Herver, holding a skewer of mushrooms, smiled and said, The food's ready. Eat a little first. Ibet hesitated when she saw it, then took the skewer, looking slightly puzzled. Are you sure this is just food? She asked, then pointing to the pile of fruit on the ground. I'll eat something else. Herver stammered and looked over. That. Ghost furrowed his brows and shouted as the pile of fruit on the ground suddenly shook. Why is it vibrating like that? Sylvia mischievously shook one of the fruits, making it rattle, and said, This is the fruit that our elven tribe loves the most. It's called the bouncing fruit. The more it shakes, the sweeter and more fragrant the juice inside. But you have to be careful. The fruits with pink juice inside are poisonous and can even eat through your clothes. After saying this, Sylvia stuck out her tongue and licked it. This is a delicacy that only our tribe can find. Sylvia squeezed one of the bouncing fruits, causing juice to spray out. Drinking the juice like this is fine. The skin is really tough to chew. Seeing this, Ibet blushed and hesitated. This. Herver happily held up another skewer of mushrooms and explained, This type of mushroom is called water meat mushroom. It's an extremely rare mushroom. I can't believe we found it here, deep in the forest, even among the elves. It's a treasure. Ghost, looking bewildered, stared at the precious mushroom in her hand while Herver continued talking about it. Although it looked like a mushroom when you ate it, it had a taste like meat, truly magical and incredibly delicious. Ghost stuck out her tongue and was about to bite into it when Herver warned her, "But you have to be careful." At that moment, water sprayed out from the mushroom and splashed all over Ghost's face. Seeing that her clothes were soaked, Herver clasped his hands together in a sincere apology. Sorry, I spoke too slowly. It's called the meat water mushroom because it contains a large amount of water. Even if you try to grill it, it won't dry out and it's very easy to explode. Are you okay?" Ida lowered her head, trembling all over, with bits of meat water still splattered on her. Then she remembered in her panic how she had used her foot to squeeze Rammo's face, distorting it, and the bowl of water had triggered a massive cascading waterfall. Ibet blushed. As she remembered, her face darkened and she shuddered, feeling a nervous energy build up. The waterfall's rumbling laugh echoed in the background. Ghost's deep, amused chuckle rang out. Ha ha. Seeing this, Herver handed over a cloth, looking confused at Ghost and saying, "Miss Ibet." Ignoring him, Ibet jumped to her feet in frustration, shouting, "I'm going to kill you." Her eyes turned bloodshot, radiating murderous intent. She raised the mushroom skewer and shouted again, "I'm going to kill you right here." Raml activated a teleportation spell, calling out, "Flem, can you hear me? Flem?" Inside the Demon Lord's castle, Flem responded, "Ah, your majesty." His figure appeared faintly and then spoke. "Sorry to bother you so late. I hope I'm not interrupting your rest." Sitting on the bed, hugging a pillow, Flem quickly replied, "No, not at all, your majesty. Have you emerged from seclusion?" Flem continued, "Not yet, but I have some concerns. I wanted to check on the situation in the barren Killa Kingdom. Any news?" Flem's eyes gleamed as she stared at the shifting figure. There was indeed news. Originally, she had planned to wait until His Majesty had fully emerged from seclusion to report. She pressed her face to the pillow with the Demon Lord's face printed on it, smiling happily as she said, "Congratulations, your majesty. The envoy sent to the barren Killa Kingdom, led by Herver, has achieved a perfect result. The barren Killa Kingdom has agreed to join our Demon Lord's army. From now on, the only obstacle standing in our way, the army of the Kingdom of Barren Killa, has been eliminated." Rammo sighed in frustration, rubbing his face and asking, "Oh, I see. Any other news? Like, were there any casualties?" Remembering the battle between the two sides, she reported, "No reports of a rebellion from Barren Killa. The Elf Queen escaped under the protection of her guards, but not long after fleeing, the rebel forces rescued the entire envoy's guards." Flem recalled the image of the guards happily shaking hands with Vera, who was clearly upset. It was them who, in the end, signed the peace treaty with the rebels. Rammo groaned in frustration, holding his face. "All right, I get it. Let's leave it at that for now." However, he could notice a dark figure with glowing red eyes lurking behind a bush. Ibet suddenly lunged forward, leaping high and aimed straight for him. "I have to kill you." Rammo turned around in surprise to look. At that moment, on Flem's side, the connection had been cut off. Flem widened his eyes, feeling confused, and thought to himself, "I think I just heard a woman's voice." On the side of Herver and Sylvia, the fire was still burning brightly. Herver, looking worried, said, "Do you think something's happened to Ibet after how she looked just now?" Sylvia calmly analyzed the situation. "Don't worry too much, sister. Ibet's position with us is complicated. Half friend, half foe. We don't need to be overly concerned." Then she picked up a mushroom, skewered it, and continued curiously, "But there's something about Rammo that's been on my mind. Sister, do you remember that ancient prophecy?" She recalled the image of a girl sitting at the entrance of a cave, murmuring the prophecy. "You will definitely hear rumors of earthquakes, crop failures, and wars. This is the beginning of the birth of a saint. When you see all these things, it means the saint is already at your doorstep. It begins in chaos, gazing upward at the heavens and looking down upon the earth. Hardship, darkness, all of it will reshape everything because of him." Herver, holding a bouncy fruit, frowned and looked over, saying, "Of course I remember. That's the most important prophecy in our tribe. It's said that the moon goddess herself delivered it thousands of years ago. Many people in Gazma still fight against the Demon King's army because they're waiting for the saint to appear." Sylvia blew on the freshly roasted mushroom, calmly continuing, "That's right, sister. This is exactly the world described in the prophecy. Then where is the savior? Why does the prophecy say we will feel terrified when we see the savior?" Herver looked puzzled for a moment, then crushed a jumping fruit in her hand and stuck out her tongue, savoring the flavor of the juice. "Hey," Herver said between bites, her gaze drifting down to the flickering flames. She sighed. "A lot of people think the savior's appearance is so strange, even ugly and deformed. More bizarre than any creature we've ever known." That's why we would be scared when we see the savior. Suddenly, a mushroom still wet with juice was brought in front of her. Sylvia called out, "Is there anyone more bizarre than a demon?" She jumped to her feet, her eyes lighting up as she shared her thought. Could it be that the true identity of the savior is actually a demon? Careful, it's hot. Herver quickly dismissed the idea. How could a demon become the savior of Gazma? Realizing Sylvia's implication, Herver widened her eyes in surprise. Are you talking about Lord Rammo? Sylvia grinned slyly, waving the mushroom around as she confirmed, "Exactly, sister. Think about it. Based on his strength and abilities, how could he have stayed so quiet in Gazma all this time before the Demon King's army invaded?" Herver quickly shoved the mushroom into his mouth, then added, "Even someone with more talent couldn't mature as quickly as he has. Unless, of course, he's the Demon Lord Lucifer Morlub, with a monstrous gift like the ones in the Demon Lord's army." Herver closed his eyes, his cheeks flushed as he sighed. It's so good, and stuck his tongue out to lick the juice from the mushroom. Also, after we found out that Roman is a half-breed, part human, part demon, didn't it shock you like it does in the legends? The most important thing is that he uses the identity of a dark knight, constantly opposing the Demon Lord's army. The mushroom's juice flowed so much that Sylvia couldn't swallow fast enough. There's too much juice," she said. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Isn't that the kind of thing the savior is supposed to do? Hey, did I roast it well?" Herver immediately praised her. "It's so good, I can't stop eating it." But Herver wiped the juice from the corner of his mouth and looked thoughtful. "We can't just call Sir Raymond the savior like that." Sylvia sat up and looked toward the forest, suggesting, "Let's go scout around. We can't just make a simple judgment like that. But there's a good chance he's someone we should be paying attention to. I'll go see what those two are up to. As long as the conflict doesn't escalate too much, it should be fine," she added. Seeing this, Herver quickly stood up. "I'll go too." Meanwhile, on the other side, Ramon was facing trouble with Ghost. Ibet, furious, shouted, "I'm going to kill you." She charged at Ramon with something in her hand, but unexpectedly tripped and fell face first onto the ground. Ramon sighed helplessly and crouched down, gently calling out, "Miss Ibet." Seeing him getting closer and even reaching out to help her stand up, Ghost sneered. "Ha." Taking advantage of his distraction, she lunged straight for his chest. "I have to kill you." Rammo didn't have time to react. He was attacked and fell backward, blood spilling out. She moved closer to him and sat on his chest. With a dazed expression, he tried to calm things down. "I bet if you got something to say, take your time. Calm down a little." She responded immediately, clearly disgusted. "Calm down? I just remembered everything." Ibet clenched her fists, 2 tears rolling down her cheeks. Frustrated, she shouted, "I remember everything now. Only by killing you will there be no one left to know about it." She raised her hand high, shouting fiercely, "Killing you is the only way to restore my innocence." And then she drove the knife down. Rammo, covered in blood, remained calm and said, "I understand the reasoning." But then he quickly sat up, glaring at the mushroom in her hand, and angrily shouted, "You can't kill anyone with a mushroom." Ibet blinked, confused. "Oh, but you don't care," she muttered before slapping him repeatedly in the face. "I don't care about me, don't care about you, just die already." Panicking, Rammo yelled, "Don't waste food. Hey!" He quickly grabbed her wrist, stopping her. "That's enough." Sitting up, Rammo tried to explain, "Listen to me. With your strength, there's no way you can kill me. Let's think of another way to make it right, okay?" Ibet felt a deep sadness and frustration, but she knew that completing Lady Lilith's task was even more important. It was all for Lady Lilith's will. She mumbled softly to herself, "For Lady Lilith," then forced a smile and tried to speak in a calming way. "Right, so can you get off me now? We should think about how to make it up." But Ibet disagreed. She shifted down and rubbed against Rammo's pants. "Isn't the way to make up for it simple? Just sit down." Rammo was a little confused. "Huh?" He blinked, unsure of what was happening. Ibet's hand pressed firmly against his chest, and he couldn't help but feel uncertain. Under the bright moonlight, she looked down at him with a teasing gaze. "As long as you're like me when I was in the prison, isn't that enough?" Rammo's confusion only deepened. He stared at her, completely bewildered. "Huh?" Ibet settled fully on top of him, pinning his arms to the ground despite his protests. Hey, calm down." Looking down at him, the moonlight shining on her made her seem even more alluring. She gave him a seductive smile and, in a soft voice, said, "Why are you still staring at me like that? Didn't you say you'd make it up in another way?" As she spoke, she reached for his belt with a quick motion, all while keeping her eyes on his shocked expression. "As long as you show yourself to me now, we'll call it even." Rammo quickly shot up, his face pale. He grabbed her hand, desperately trying to stop her from undoing his belt. His voice panicked. "Hey, stop! You're crazy." Ibet, with a smirk, completely ignored him and casually laid her head on Rammo's lap, holding him tight. "You're the crazy one." I've never been this clear-headed. Now show me. Rammo was horrified, his mouth opened in a silent scream as he thought, I've heard that a ghost can check someone's magical energy through these indescribable touches. If that's true, my identity will be exposed for sure. One of Rammo's hands reached out, flailing in midair, and he shouted, no, something like this can't possibly pass the approval process. He grabbed a handful of grass from the ground, trying to crawl away, while his other hand desperately held on his pants, preventing any more forceful pulling from Ibet. The ghost remained stubborn, unwilling to stop. Humph, keep shouting all you want, it said. Ibet, using both hands, finally managed to undo Rammo's belt. The more you resist, the more you scream, he said. At this moment, Rammo glanced down in panic. What about me? He stammered. The ghost pulled at Rammo's outer pants, exposing a little of his skin, then wore a satisfied, excited expression, tilting its head back to laugh. The more excited you get, the better. With no way left to resist, Rammo desperately covered his face and screamed in despair. Ah, ah, ha ha ha. At this point, Rammo could only hold on to the grass, biting his lip in frustration. Suddenly, he noticed something from the corner of his eye. Two spirits were standing nearby, having witnessed everything, leaving Rammo in stunned silence. Sylvia, blushing, leaned close to Herver and whispered, so they've been secretly doing this. How shameless. Herver, also embarrassed, watched the scene, then covered his mouth, grinning with amusement. Come on, you two, take it to the next level already. Don't stall. This is getting really exciting. Ibet suddenly seemed to wake up from a dream when she saw the two people in front of her. She blinked in confusion, looking down at the person beneath her. Ha! As she looked down, she realized she was still holding onto Rammo's pants, pulling them down to reveal his bare backside. She froze and let out a loud scream. Ah! Her face quickly turned as red as a boiled lobster, and her mind was spinning from the embarrassment. She quickly jumped off Rammo and frantically tried to explain to the two elves who were standing there blinking at them. This is not what it looks like, not at all. This is a misunderstanding. The two of them exchanged a knowing look. Sylvia, with a look as if she had seen it all before, turned to Herver. Misunderstanding, I get it. After all, demons are like that by nature. Herver also covered his mouth with his hand, glancing at Sylvia with a tone full of sympathy. Ah, Ghost, there are always a few days each month when you can't control yourself. I understand. The two of them nodded in agreement, turning around to leave. We'll go. We won't disturb their private time anymore. Ibet hurriedly tried to explain again. It's really not what you think. Angrily, she turned back and glared at Rammo, who was still lying on the grass, looking like he had given up on life. Huff, you're lucky this time. We're not done with this. Rammo buried his head in the ground, his face a picture of exhaustion. He looked as though he wanted to cry, but couldn't. Who did I even offend? Eventually, they all returned to the campfire they had started earlier. Sylvia looked at Ibet and Rammo. Is it really over already? Herver, sitting off to the side, looked a little guilty. Well, it's all our fault for disturbing their private moment. Ibet sat quietly in the middle of their conversation, swallowing her embarrassment without daring to speak. Please stop talking, she thought to herself. At that time, everything seemed fine, but now I just feel so embarrassed. And there's more. She glanced across the fire at Rammo, who was lost in his thoughts, completely out of it. His expression was vacant, his eyes distant, and he looked so pathetic, sitting there in his own world. She couldn't help but mutter to herself, Why do you act like you were forced into this? It's like you were the one who's been wronged. Just then, Sylvia turned to look at Rammo and, curious, asked, By the way, Rammo, my sister and I are planning to join the Demon Lord's army as spies like my sister did. When the time comes, just tell them I'm your prisoner. Rammo looked confused at first. Then, it seemed like he snapped back to reality. His face showed a mix of disbelief, and he immediately shot back with a loud protest. Of course, that's not okay. He didn't say it out loud, but inside, his mind was in turmoil. I finally got rid of Polly, and now I'm supposed to bring back a ticking time bomb to the Demon Lord's castle. Am I trying to get myself killed? The three of them looked at his strong reaction, clearly puzzled. Ghost raised an eyebrow, suspicious. Herver, too, was curious. Why not, he asked. Rammo stammered, unable to get the words out at first. Ah, well, it's just. Then Rammo clenched his fists and, with a sudden burst of courage, declared in a noble, heroic tone, We've already sacrificed so much in our fight against the Demon Lord's army. Now, it's enough for me to make the sacrifice alone. Sylvia heard those words and quickly glanced at Herver. Look, sister, he's truly a man with a pure heart, just like a saint saving the world. Herver nodded in agreement, confirming to her, Yes, that's him. Sylvia jumped up as if in admiration and said to Rammo, Well said, your spirit is beyond that of a true Gazma, but when it comes to sacrifice, I won't be weaker than you. I'm going to the Demon King's castle. Rammo didn't expect this kind of response. His eyes widened in confusion. Hey, Herver, with a proud and gentle expression, wrapped her arms around Sylvia. Sylvia, that's right. We should have the same sacrificial spirit as Mr. Rammo. I support you. Rammo, still stunned by the sister's reaction, muttered some nonsensical sounds. Oh, ah! Caught in the middle of their strong sisterly bond and selfless spirit, he stood there, looking speechless. Clearly, the chess structure of beings from this world was very different from that of Earthlings. Meanwhile, at the Demon King's castle, the full moon hung high in the sky. Flem was tightly hugging a pillow with the blank face of Demon King Morla printed on it. Had she heard that wrong? She was wearing a light, airy nightgown, lying in bed, holding the pillow with Morla's face and looking visibly upset. It seemed like there was a woman's voice next to the Demon King. Could it be that the Demon King was? The thought flashed through her mind, and she immediately imagined a scene where the Demon King was lying in the arms of some seductive demon girls who knew how to please him. She quickly shook her head, trying to get rid of the thought, and kept reassuring herself. No, that can't be it. There's no way there could be a woman next to the Demon King, right? I must have misheard. The next day, she suddenly sat up on the bed, muttering to herself. But anyway, the Crown Prince is still a strong man. Flem hugged the pillow tightly to her chest, her face flushed with slight embarrassment as she lightly scolded herself. If that's really the case, he could have come to me. She then lowered her head and sighed, ah. But soon enough, she pulled herself together, filled with determination, and clenched her fist. Then I'll just have to try a little harder to get the Crown Prince's attention. She swung her legs off the bed, set the pillow aside, and started thinking about the Demon King's actions. I can't believe that even while in seclusion, the Crown Prince is still keeping an eye on the situation in the Barren Killa Kingdom. This must be really important. A door creaked open, and Flem quickly changed into a more fitting outfit, grabbed a stack of documents, and walked over to the desk. As she walked, her mind was on her Crown Prince. This time they had won without a fight, and the most important thing was that the Crown Prince had always been committed to a policy of benevolent governance. Flem sat down at her desk, carefully considering matters related to the Barren Killa Kingdom. For the newly annexed Barren Killa Kingdom, they would definitely need to approach it with double, even tenfold more kindness and compassion. She put the pen to her lips, deep in thought. Oh. Flem's hand paused over the file for Minos before making a decision. Let Minos go to Barren Killa. Elsewhere in Minos' castle, a mule was chewing grass while reading aloud, "What's all this fuss about? Where is Barren Killa?" Minos, with his muscular build and a head covered in question marks, held a piece of paper in his hand, reading it out loud while asking, "What's this policy of mercy? Redirecting the remaining supplies of the entire army to rescue people instead of crushing them. I can't make sense of it, but I do see a lot of important sounding words, right? The rest of it's up to you." Minos handed the paper to Linus. She quickly responded, "Got it." She furrowed her brow and glanced at Minos, silently thinking, I've only read a few words and my brain is already fried. How does the Demon Lord even think this way? Then she looked down at the letter in her hands, reading it again, still confused. But the Barren Killa Kingdom was overthrown, and they even submitted to our army. I've heard of that place before. Has the situation with the natural disasters really gotten that bad? Linus put the paper down on the table and excitedly turned to Minos to explain. This is the policy of mercy, the unrivaled mercy. She picked up a plate with tea and pastries, using a simple example to explain. Take these pastries and tea, for instance. These are luxuries that only the nobility can afford, things regular people wouldn't even dare dream of. But under the Demon Lord's rule, they become common, even for ordinary people. Linus eagerly bit into a pastry, all while praising the system. It's because we've worked so hard to build up the local economy and reduce taxes that life under the Demon Lord's regime has become so much better. Once the Demon Lord hears about what we've done, he'll definitely reward us. Minos looked at her, partly understanding, then nodded as if he got it. He smiled, showing his teeth, and gave her a thumbs up. So that's the policy of mercy? I got it. Linus looked at him, unimpressed, and snapped. No, you totally don't get it. She put her finger in her mouth and sucked on it lightly, then grinned. But it's just as well. Linus cheerfully picked up another pastry, smiling. This is also a chance to test the civil service system I've set up. It's time to amaze everyone. Minos rubbed his chin and held up the stack of papers, trying to read through the confusion. Is this what you mean by those toys of law, the so-called mathematical laws you mentioned earlier? Are humans really obsessed with things like this? Linus glanced at him, clearly speechless. Seriously, I honestly don't even know how to respond to you. Minos suddenly turned to her, still puzzled, and asked, I'm really curious. How did you come up with something so complicated? Before she could react to his question, Linus was momentarily stunned. Huh? Then she lowered her head and spoke to him in a calm, serious tone. This idea came from a friend of mine from the past, she said, her mind drifting back to the past. For thousands of years, everything on this land had been controlled by the same noble families and priests, passed down from generation to generation. In Lidis's memory, when she was just a poor child, knocked down onto the ground, she could see 3 tall men in front of her, each holding a wooden mace. They didn't understand anything. Some of them couldn't even write their own names, but they enjoyed the richest luxuries. In that moment, as she lay helplessly on the ground, those men looked at her with malicious smiles. The nobles, large and small, were like parasites, draining every last resource from the Gazma region, exploiting the people without any shame. She continued, her voice firm. I still remember the cruel smile of a young nobleman aimed at me. It's time to root out the corrupt nobility and clergy so everyone has a fair chance. At that moment, Lidis could only grit her teeth and glare helplessly. Minos huffed, breathing heavily, and then spoke loudly to her. So that's how it is. He looked furious, slamming his fist down onto the table. Is that really what it's like? That makes perfect sense. I totally understand now. Ah ha ha ha. Lidis, feeling helpless, held her head in her hands, thinking to herself, no, you really don't understand anything. But right after that, a gentle hand rested on her shoulder. Lidis glanced to the side. If there were so many good points about this, Minos placed his hand on her shoulder and said, in a voice that was surprisingly reassuring, then go ahead and do it. If anything goes wrong, I'll take the responsibility. Hearing those words, Lidis turned her head and smiled slightly, nodding in agreement. All right. Minos scratched his head and looked up. Although I don't really get it, after years of marching into battles, there are still a few things I can see clearly. What was that phrase again? He turned his back to Lidis, fell silent for a moment, and then grinned at her, giving her a thumbs up. Human toys, ought to know, Lidis, you're really talented. His words left Lidis a bit stunned. She stared at him wide-eyed, her mind racing as memories resurfaced. In the past, there had been a boy who once excitedly told her, Thank you, Lidis. Because of you, we can walk this path. He flashed a joyful thumbs up and smiled at her. Lidis, you're different from us. You're really talented. The 2 boys behind him squinted and grinned, nodding proudly in agreement. At that moment, Lidis blushed, awkwardly wiping her nose with her hand and softly said, What are you guys saying? Now, in the present, Lidis also wiped her nose, but tears kept streaming down her face. Her voice trembled with emotion as she finished the sentence she had once said long ago. Are you mocking me? I'm an orphan. There are so many orphans on this path. A little girl stood with her back to the narrow alley, and she was Lidis. In front of her was a vast, bright, and lush open space filled with trees. Behind her was the narrow alley lined with trash. Adding another child wouldn't make anyone notice, and losing one wouldn't matter either. It seemed she heard someone calling her name. To survive, we gathered together. A line of small children, their clothes tattered, stood before a pile of discarded garbage. It was a gathering place of trash, or maybe just an unnoticed alleyway. The children ran toward Lidis. In that narrow alley, a few makeshift shelters were built from discarded items. That was where the children lived, the only place they could survive. The sound of iron heels echoed as they passed through the alley, of flames roaring inside. But 2 soldiers in iron armor emerged from the alley, bathed in the flickering light of the fire. Lidis immediately became alert and hid behind a trash can outside. When the soldiers had gone, Lidis quickly ran out to look into the alley. She was in a panic, her eyes wide with shock, her face showing both fear and pain as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. The only roof. Lidis froze, staring at the raging fire that had completely burned down the only roof she had along with the homes of other children. In front of the flames, someone was lying on the ground. Aaron. Lidis screamed, rushing toward her friend who was face down on the ground, almost engulfed by the flames. She cried. Tears streamed down her face as she held Aaron and screamed, Where are the others? But Aaron weakly whispered to her, I'm sorry. The fire kept raging, its light casting shadows over the small figure of Lidis holding her friend. Aaron's eyes slowly closed, and with great effort, he muttered again, I'm sorry. Lidis couldn't believe it. She stared at Aaron, now lifeless, while the fire continued to burn fiercely around the 2 children. Suddenly, a soldier in iron armor turned back and shouted angrily, Oh, there's still more. Because of you people, this city's full of beggars. 2 soldiers stood behind Lidis. One of them reached for his sword and yelled, Disgusting. Lidis glared at them, sitting there and listening to their insults while still clutching Aaron tightly. She spoke through gritted teeth. It's not us. As she spoke, she grabbed a rock from the ground. Lidis's anger flared as she held the stone in her hand, raising it as if to attack the soldiers. She shouted at them in fury. Clearly, the number of beggars was already decided. It's not us. But just then, a heavily armored foot quickly slammed into her chest, sending her flying backward in a spray of blood. The soldier swung his leg and watched her get knocked away, muttering angrily, Shit, too noisy. At that moment, a voice suddenly rang out, grabbing his attention. Hold on. Another man, also wearing armor, appeared. He flashed a curious smile and looked at Lidis. So, you gathered the others here? Interesting. Looks like you have some serious skills. You should follow me. Maybe one day in the future we'll see what you're really capable of. As he spoke, a wicked, calculating smile spread across his face, and he placed a hand on Lidis' head. You have a chance to join me on the battlefield. Finishing her own recollection, Lidis fell into deep thought. She lifted her gaze to the bright golden light shining from behind. At that same moment, a large ship rocked in the harbor, bobbing with the waves. A man's voice, filled with surprise, rang out, "You want to get on my ship to join the Demon King's army?" The old captain, puffing on a cigar and letting out smoke, spoke to the group in front of him. This is a cargo ship. It's packed with goods, no space for anything else. And you all look so eager. Are you fugitives or something? You young folks these days, I've seen plenty of storms on the sea. Rammo's group stood quietly, eyes closed, listening passively to the old captain's rambling. Really think I can't see through this? But before the old man could say anything else, a cloth sack was tossed in front of him. He jumped in surprise and quickly reached out to grab it. Sylvia frowned, cutting off the pointless words with a sharp reply. Old man, are you taking the 400 gold coins or not? The old captain lowered his head, one hand holding the bag of money, the other holding a cigarette, looking serious. See, that's what I'm talking about with young people today, he muttered as he raised his head, his tone suddenly upbeat and welcoming as he turned to the four people. Rammo's group. You all look just right. Please come inside. He quickly tucked the bag of money into his jacket. On the large ship, the captain's loud voice rang out, "Look here. This space is over 200 square feet, with a window that opens to a view of the vast sea. Plus, there's a private bathroom. A fan of that?" He gestured proudly toward the room. "This is the presidential suite we prepared for you." The four of them stood in silence at the door, staring into the room. The captain, still eager, kept pointing toward the room as he finished his exaggerated pitch. "Watch your heads. Dinner will be served soon, a lavish seafood feast. Hope you enjoy your night on the open sea." The three girls immediately walked in to assess the room. Sylvia stared at the decaying walls, repeating the captain's words in disbelief. "Comfortable room." Ibet's eyes landed on the small bucket with "DUC" written on it beside the bed. She said, "Private bathroom." Meanwhile, Herver, glancing at the bed in the middle of the room, raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "There's only one bed." Rammo, still standing frozen in the doorway, muttered under his breath, "Holy shit." He was so startled that it felt like a lightning strike beside his ear. "No, I need to talk to the captain. How could this place possibly accommodate 4 people? At that moment, the captain's voice echoed from outside as the ship prepared to set sail. Rammo turned to see the captain signaling at the door, and in frustration, he shouted, "You're moving too fast." The captain turned around, gave a thumbs up, and smiled confidently. "Oh, you're young, but you got a good eye. This ship of mine is famous for its speed." Rammo, completely speechless, shouted back at the old man, "You can keep your sarcastic remarks to yourself. And the fact that you're moving so fast. Clearly, you got something else planned, right?" The captain, firmly holding the wheel, responded, "Isn't it because I'm afraid you'll regret it? I'm just worried you won't make it in time." Rammo stood there, wide-eyed and confused, asking, was that last part the truth? He rubbed his head, feeling a bit of a headache as he thought about the room they'd just seen. But there was only one bed in that room. How were the 4 of them supposed to sleep there? While he was still trying to make sense of it, a hand suddenly landed on his shoulder. Rammo stopped and glanced at the hand. The captain, looking sly yet thoughtful, chuckled and said, "Ha ha ha. Don't hold on to your worries like that. Young people should be gazing out at the vast ocean and thinking about the spirit of a young girl." To make matters worse, the old man reassured him with a smirk, "And tonight I'll be very busy. I won't hear a thing. Don't worry." The boat set sail with the sound of Rammo's shout, "Don't make such a big deal out of this." He frowned, his expression tense as he thought to himself, could they really want me? He imagined the bright, chaotic scene of being tangled up in bed with the other 3, and his heart skipped a beat. Am I supposed to sleep with all of them? The sun was setting, casting the last few rays of light into the boat's cabin. That was the situation at hand. At this moment, Rammo was trying to explain to everyone, the boat has already left the port. There's no other boat we can choose now. We'll just have to make do. Herver smiled and replied, "It's really the only choice we have, but the bed is pretty spacious. A little bit of crowding won't be a problem." Sylvia didn't seem convinced. She made a confused face and said, "But sis, how could you possibly share a bed with this disgusting man?" Hearing this, Rammo scratched his head and said, "Well, then I'll just sleep on the floor. Honestly, I don't even need to sleep." Herver glanced at Ibet, then suggested, "How about Rammo sleeps on the edge of the bed with Miss Ibet?" Sylvia quickly agreed, "Yeah, that works." Ibet raised an eyebrow, pointing at Rammo in confusion. She didn't agree, asking, "Wait a second. Why would you want me to sleep with him?" Herver and Sylvia giggled, exchanging a sly look before glancing at Ibet. Oh, well, back in the little forest, the two of you were already like that, so I thought. Ibet's face turned bright red. She stammered, trying to explain, no, there's a different reason. It's not like what you think. The next day, a thought suddenly crossed Ibet's mind, and she began to quietly consider her options. Plus, she hadn't achieved her goal yet. That's right, all she needed was for this person to sleep next to her. She rested her chin on her hand, deep in thought, then glanced at Rammo with a dangerous look in her eyes. With the distance so close, wasn't this the perfect chance for revenge? Noticing the rapid change in Ibet's expression, Ramlo's face darkened with worry. What I think I do, Ibet said, sitting on the bed. Her voice was loud and clear as she announced, I take back what I said earlier. I agree now. She sat there, arms crossed, a smirk on her face as she looked at Rammo. Let this guy sleep next to me. I'm only doing this because I'm feeling generous. Otherwise, you should thank me. Rammo didn't look the least bit happy. His face twisted in frustration as he muttered to himself, Thanks, huh? Your scheming is written all over your face. As night fell over the boat and everyone else was fast asleep, Rammo lay trembling at the edge of the bed. Behind him were Ibet and the other two. In that moment, Rammo shivered, his mind repeating, If I don't sleep, it means there's something wrong with me. I have to sleep. Meanwhile, Ibet, behind him, clenched her fists, gritting her teeth as she shot him a fierce glare. Rammo glanced back cautiously, noting her intense gaze. In the stillness of the night, a sudden large wave slammed against the side of the boat, shaking it violently. Inside the cabin, Rammo and the others were also tossed around. Rammo turned his head and immediately collided with Ibet's soft, fair chest. Ibet was startled, her face turning bright red. She immediately lifted her leg and kicked Rammo, sending him flying straight to the floor, causing him to scream. Suddenly kicked, Rammo rolled off the bed and lay flat on the ground, still not bothering to wipe the blood from his nose as he muttered resentfully. You're the one who told me to sleep, and now you're the one kicking me. Are you trying to pick a fight on purpose? Ibet quickly responded loudly, What? Is this not a normal reaction? This is the inevitable law of nature. Rammo retorted sharply, First, show some respect for your ghost status, okay? With that, he stood up and turned to walk away. I think I should go up to the ship's deck and keep watch tonight instead. Ibet quickly grabbed the corner of his shirt and pulled him back, firmly saying, No, you absolutely have to sleep here tonight. Rammo clicked his tongue and sighed, reluctantly returning to the edge of the bed. Everyone heard that it was her request. He muttered before lying down with a sly grin. Tonight, I'm going to scare you out of your wits. Seeing that Rammo had settled down, Ibet began to plan something. There's nothing to be afraid of. Nothing to be afraid of at all. The ghost sat still on the bed, closing her eyes to calm her mind. Great Lilith, at your service, she whispered, reaching out to grab Rammo's shoulder. Noticing something was wrong, he looked at Ibet with confusion. What now? But his face quickly turned pale as Ibet flipped him over and sat on top of him. She looked down at him with a smile and said, What's wrong? Of course, I'm continuing what we started last time, the part we didn't finish. As she spoke, she reached for Rammo's belt, causing him to panic. Didn't I already tell you? Just pee right here, and as long as I see it, we'll call it even. Rammo, now completely terrified, his eyes wide, screamed out in shock. What? Are you crazy? Ibet then lowered her hand to Rammo's waist, fumbling to undo it, while mumbling, I'm not crazy at all. In fact, I'm doing just fine. Let me see for myself. Rammo quickly sat up, shouting to stop her, No, this really isn't okay. With that, he grabbed Ghost's wrist, flipped her over, and pinned her down. He held her arms firmly on either side, gritting his teeth. Had you had enough chaos? At that moment, Herver and Sylvia, lying nearby, were half-conscious and muttering in their sleep. Sis stopped struggling, Demon King no. Rammo's face darkened even more, his mind screaming in frustration, Don't add more weird stuff into the mix now. Meanwhile, Ibet was smiling slyly at Rammo, teasing him, Resisting like this doesn't mean I really have to help you. Do you think just because you're holding my hands, I'm completely helpless? She raised her legs, brushing them against Rammo's body, then revealed her tail, flicking it playfully. I always kept it hidden for convenience. Have you forgotten about it? Rammo turned his head to look behind him, stunned. Ibet's voice continued to tempt him. Doesn't my ghost clan have a tail? Rammo stared, confused, and Ibet grinned smugly. This is the tail my ghost clan is most proud of. Do you know why it's so famous, even across all the Gazma territories? She glanced at Rammo and softly explained with a light chuckle. Because it's where the enchanted essence of the ghost tribe gathers. Once we're pierced by it, we'll be completely overwhelmed, turning into slaves to pleasure. Rammo held Ibet tightly, his face full of panic as he asked, Pierced? Where can it pierce? Ibet gave him a quick look, clicking her tongue in disbelief. You fool, of course. Just as she finished speaking, the ghost's tail lunged toward Rammo, aiming for his back. It's the very last spot, she added. Before she even finished, Rammo's eyes widened in shock as he stared at the ghost's tail moving closer to him. What? Suddenly, the ship jolted violently, causing Rammo to lose his grip and accidentally bury his face into Ibet's chest. The loud noise woke Herver and Sylvia from their sleep. Both of them rubbed their eyes sleepily, murmuring, "What's happening?" They both yawned, and then Herver sleepily covered his mouth and mumbled, "I was clearly just dreaming about the important part." At that moment, both of them turned their heads to look at Rammo and Ibet, fully waking up. "Oh," Herver said with an amused look on his face, clearly enjoying the scene. "This kind of thing really happened?" Sylvia quickly moved to cover Herver's eyes, her face turning red in embarrassment and frustration as she scolded. So shameless. Sister, don't look anymore." Seeing Rammo lying across her chest, Ibet froze for a moment. Huff. Then, snapping out of it, she quickly tried to explain, No, it's not what you think. This was an accident, just an accident." Sylvia covered her mouth, giggling, and shot a knowing look at Ibet. Accident, we get it." Ibet was frustrated as she looked down at Rammo, who still refused to move away. Feeling both embarrassed and annoyed, she snapped, "Why are you still lying there? Get up and move quickly." Rammo's expression turned serious. His voice was firm as he said, "Wait a minute." He turned his head to glance behind him, then called out to the others, "Listen carefully to what's happening outside." At that moment, dark clouds blanketed the sky. The wind howled, thunder rumbled, and lightning streaked across the heavens, illuminating the mast of waves crashing against the ship's hull. Shouts from the crew echoed through the storm. "Captain, the storm is getting worse. If this keeps up, the ship won't hold. Captain, the left side of the hull of the stern is damaged. Water could start flooding in at any moment." Then another voice, filled with panic, rang out, "Captain, all crew members are on deck. Something serious is happening." Hearing this, Rammo quickly jumped to his feet. "We need to help, now." Outside, the captain was shouting orders, his voice cutting through the chaos as he tried to steady the crew. "Stay calm, secure the hull, lower the sails, and hold your positions." A crew member rushed over to report, "Captain, the hull has been reinforced." The group around Rammo stood still, watching as the captain moved swiftly from one end of the deck to the other, ensuring everything was under control. Moments later, another sailor called out, "Captain, most of the sails are down, only 2 are left for steering. We still have control of the ship." Rammo and the 3 others stood frozen, speechless. "Ha!" The captain panted, continuing to speak loudly between breaths. "Very good. The open sea is the prey we need to conquer, not our grave. Don't let it deceive us." Rammo wasn't sure when, but he had somehow appeared behind the captain, puzzled. "Captain, I know you're different, but are you the only one left on this ship?" Hearing that, the captain laughed and replied, "Ha ha, at this point, no young person is heading toward the open sea anymore. It's just left to an old man like me to handle multiple roles. My apologies, dear guest, for making you all witness something like this." The captain then put on a serious expression and loudly reminded everyone, "This storm came so suddenly, we couldn't react in time. Logically, there shouldn't have been such a situation." Herver looked up at the sky and assessed, "This rain really isn't normal. It feels like a violent surge of magic is flowing through it." Sylvia responded, "Sister, I can feel it too." At that moment, Rammo's thoughts echoed the same. The violent magic in the air wasn't the issue. It was something beneath the water. Something was approaching. Then from the waves, a sea monster emerged. It moved closer, its gaze fixed on the ship where Rammo and the others stood. The captain looked up in panic and exclaimed, "Could it be? That's..." Ibet quickly turned around, her expression filled with doubt. The Kraken is the legendary sea monster from the Northern Sea that destroyed an entire ancient kingdom. It's not just a golden-ranked creature. It might even be a god-level being. As the massive creature drew closer to Rammo, she bit her lip and furrowed her brow, watching it carefully. At that moment, the creature swung one of its tentacles toward Rammo. As the tentacle was about to strike him, everyone shouted in unison, "Rammo, dodge." Rammo's hand moved slightly as he summoned his sword. He quickly grabbed it and swung, cutting through the tentacle with a single clean strike. The captain's eyes widened in shock. He caught it. He actually caught it. The Kraken observed Rammo's emotionless face and silently reflected. Was it instinct that made him act? It was as though he no longer cared about hiding his true strength. The Kraken studied Rammo carefully, sensing an aura of danger around him. When it looked into Rammo's cold, murderous eyes, it couldn't help but feel a moment of surprise. Even a semi-god like me can feel the dangerous aura around him. The massive ship was floating on the sea, surrounded by the Kraken's enormous tentacles. On the ship's bow, several people were standing, discussing what to do next. The captain turned the wheel, trying his best to steer the ship out of the creature's attack range. It was Rammo who spoke up, carefully observing the situation. The captain, still anxious, stammered, But the Kraken controls the waves and the storms, and will push the ship right into its grasp." The old man glared at Rammo's back with a look of annoyance and muttered, "Besides, it still has endless tentacles. No one can escape when facing the Kraken at sea." Rammo paid no attention to the old man's objections and calmly replied, "That's why I'm going to deal with it." As soon as he spoke, he drew his sword and took a battle stance, preparing for the attack. Its sharp eyes glowed with intensity, and a powerful aura radiated from him. Then he soared into the stormy sky, leaving the people on the ship too stunned to react. Ibet, a moment later, cursed loudly as he watched Rammo's figure. "Hey, we haven't even finished our business yet, and you're going off to seek death." Standing beside him, someone silently watched with a firm expression, their hand pressed to their chest, secretly admiring him. Brave and strong, always stepping up in dangerous moments. He truly is our savior. Surrounded by his powerful aura, Rammo fixed his gaze on the churning sea, where violent waves clashed under the storm. His eyes radiated a terrifying authority. He quickly charged toward the attacking tentacles, and with skillful sword strikes and overwhelming strength, he sliced the tentacles into pieces. He glanced at the scene and silently assessed, "Too weak. This thing is actually at the Saint realm." It seemed that the danger wasn't coming from it after all. From above, Rammo looked down at the Kraken, writhing in pain in the sea, its tentacles severed and bleeding. He thought to himself, "There's something wrong with this sea." Without hesitation, he launched another attack, delivering 2 cross-shaped slashes to the Kraken's head. The cuts left a cross-shaped mark on its skull. He then landed directly on the point where the sword had struck. Rammo gripped the sword tightly and thrust it down, thinking to himself, "Just in case the death spirit has any issues, I should deal with it first." He then spoke coldly, looking at Kak, saying, "Go through." With his words, a blinding light shot down, carrying an immense surge of energy that struck the sword planted in Kraken's head. The wave of power quickly spread through Kraken's body, followed by a series of loud cracking sounds. This attack caused Kraken to sink deeper into the ocean, creating a whirlpool that pulled the ship closer. The waves slammed against the side of the ship, making it rock dangerously. On board, frantic screams filled the air. The captain was struggling to steady the ship, his hands gripping the wheel. He shouted, "Hold on tight." Meanwhile, Ramos stood frozen, staring in shock as Kraken still crackled with electricity. Despite everything, it was still alive. Was his power too limited? He gritted his teeth and muttered, "Then I'll..." Suddenly, a burst of light appeared behind him, making him turn around in alarm. Herver, Sylvia, and Ibet on the ship were equally stunned by the light. All 3 were deeply worried as they watched the scene unfold. The source of the light appeared above Kraken, where magical circles suddenly appeared, crackling loudly with sharp sounds. The light was so intense that Herver had to shield his eyes. Sylvia struggled but managed to squint, her voice full of concern as she called out, "Sister!" She reached out desperately toward Herver, her resolve hardening inside her. "I must protect my sister." The massive surge of energy quickly enveloped everything around them. The scene shifts to a forest bathed in sunlight. Young Sylvia is sitting under the massive trunk of an ancient tree, looking lost and confused. She notices some cloaked spirits nearby, their gaze toward her filled with malice. In front of her stands a fragile figure, arms outstretched, blocking her path. It's Herver, standing strong, protecting her. In Sylvia's eyes, she sees Herver's unwavering back, defending her with all his might. Back in the present, the scene is now a quiet beach, where gentle waves lap against the shore. Sylvia begins to wake, lying in Romo's arms, murmuring softly, "Sister." Suddenly, Romo's face, full of sharp features, appears in front of her, causing her to startle and let out a small gasp. At that moment, Rammo is sitting on the beach, with 3 birds watching him. He thinks to himself, "Looks like something bad is going on." Rammo glances at the 3 birds while reflecting on what just happened. Out at sea, they had encountered a violent storm, only to be faced with the Kraken. He recalls the moment when he was standing on top of the Kraken, ready to strike it down with his sword, but then it spat out black ink as if it were fleeing. The Kraken activated its teleportation spell. Rammo turns his head to look behind him. In that instant, he feels the magic of a demon lord like himself. His power is sealed. A being at the saint level should never be able to completely erase his strength. It's possible that the true cause behind all of this is what made him feel such danger back then. At that moment, Rammo was surrounded by a teleportation spell along with the Kraken. He looked at himself underwater and sighed, "Good thing my demigod form isn't like ordinary illusions. Even after the magic fades, I still keep this appearance. If I were showing the face of the Demon King here, it might cause chaos. But without any magic left, I'm just an ordinary person now. Nothing special. To survive on this deserted island, maybe water and food are problems that can't be solved. Morla's eyes lit up as he looked at the three birds, and his smile was full of danger. He chased after them, saying, "Don't run. I just want to take you all to make some potatoes." Rammo slowed down and suddenly saw someone lying on the ground. That's... The person lying unconscious was Sylvia. Rammo approached her, gently touching her forehead. "Wake up, are you okay?" Her body's freezing. He pressed his ear to her chest to listen for a heartbeat. Her heartbeat is so weak, and her breathing is shallow. Could it be from drowning? He looked at her with concern. "She can't die. I have to save her." Taking a deep breath, Rammo bent down and performed CPR on Sylvia. Suddenly, Sylvia woke up, coughing violently. Sylvia opened her eyes and saw Remmo's lips coming closer to hers. Panicked, she sat up and grabbed a bird from beside her. Sylvia threw the bird straight into Remmo's mouth, yelling, "You, you, 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 you. How dare you do such a disgusting thing to me?" The bird hit Rammo in the face, knocking him backward. He took the bird out of his mouth, spit out its feathers, and explained, "I thought you were drowning, so I did that. It wasn't some low, despicable act like you think." Sylvia didn't believe him. She was furious and couldn't forgive him. She looked over at the sword lying nearby. Rammo tried to reason with her. "Listen to me, Sylvia." Sylvia staggered to her feet, grabbing the sword. "I have to kill you." Die already," she shouted. Rammo stepped closer, trying to explain, "Looks like this time you might believe me. We were teleported to a deserted island by Kraken's magic. Right now, you and I are the same. We've both lost our powers." Sylvia felt a wave of sadness. How is that possible? Without powers, how am I supposed to protect anyone? Then suddenly something clicked in Sylvia's mind. She shouted, "Sister." Without another word, she ran into the forest, searching for her sister. Rammo chased after her, calling out, "Hey, where are you going? Neither of us has any powers right now. If you just charge into the forest like that, you'll end up getting yourself killed." Suddenly, Sylvia stopped. Rammo, panting behind her, asked, "Oh, what did you find?" Sylvia pointed to a piece of fabric on the ground. "This is my sister's clothing," she said. Rammo asked curiously, "How did you spot that? How can you be sure it came from Lady Herver?" Sylvia sat down, picking up the fabric. "My sister and I are spiritually connected. Her scent, her clothes. I've had them imprinted in my soul for a long time. Of course, I would recognize it." She closed her eyes and continued, "Back in our hometown, I washed every one of her clothes. If she hadn't stopped me, I would have even washed her undergarments perfectly clean with my mouth." Rammo broke into a cold sweat at that. "All right, I'm definitely not interested in hearing all that. I shouldn't have asked. It's my fault." Sylvia smiled. That's great. They had discovered that they were in the forest, not on the sea. The queen of the fairies was a child of nature. Maybe when her sister was brought here, the forest welcomed her. Her safety was surely guaranteed. Rammo rubbed his chin thoughtfully and sat down, looking at her. The forest welcomed her. "But are you a fairy queen too? Then why? Why did you pass out by the seaside?" Sylvia listened to Rammo and fell into thought. Suddenly, she noticed something. She pointed at Rammo and shouted, "Wait, there's a sound. Something's coming closer." Rammo disagreed. "You're just trying to change the subject." Sylvia pointed toward the forest. "No, I'm serious." Rammo didn't believe her. He thought she was just avoiding the topic. But then, a head covered in seaweed appeared. The creature with the seaweed-covered head spoke. When Rammo saw the creature, he broke out in a cold sweat. Sylvia screamed, "A monster! Ah!" and threw herself into Rammo's chest. Now was not the time for swearing, it was time to run. Rammo, suddenly knocked over by Sylvia, let out a grunt. They both fell into the muddy ground, completely drained. Frustrated, Rammo yelled, "You said we should run, so why are you grabbing onto me?" "My legs are numb." Rammo took a closer look at the creature. It was wearing a skirt. He studied the face and said, "Wait, it's not a monster." At that moment, the girl approached Rammo, removed the seaweed from her head, and there was a soft plop sound. Ibet pressed her chest against Rammo's face. Rammo couldn't breathe and let out a muffled sound. Ibet pushed him down. Rammo said, "It's Ibet." The sky was clear under the coconut tree. Sylvia looked at Rammo angrily as he pressed his face against Ibet's chest to listen to her heartbeat. She's still alive, her heart is beating fast, and her breathing is steady. Sylvia gave Rammo a look of disdain. "Oh," Rammo explained, "what's with that expression? I'm saving her, you know." Ibet, lying on the ground, said a few words, "Water, water." Rammo helped Ibet sit up and touched her forehead. She was probably dehydrated. If they didn't get her some water quickly, it could get dangerous. Sylvia, confused, responded, "Water? Isn't there water everywhere here?" Rammo explained, "No, seawater has too much salt, which can mess up the balance of water in your body and make dehydration worse." Sylvia frowned as she listened to Rammo. She didn't understand a word of what he said. Blood concentration, osmotic pressure. Rammo looked up at the coconuts on the tree. Actually, there's water here that we can use. Those round fruits up there, called coconuts, have sweet, cool water inside. Plus, you can even eat the coconut meat raw. Sylvia stood up, confused, and asked, "Our elf tribe has never had any contact with the sea, so we don't understand anything about it." "But you, how do you know there's a sea in hell?" Rammo was speechless. "I've seen a lot in my life, okay." Rammo covered Ibet with his own coat. A creator's understanding is limited by their own perspective, especially in places they find unappealing or don't care about. The wisdom from past lives is what really comes into play in situations like these. Rammo noticed Sylvia taking off her shoes and walking over to a coconut tree. She was about to climb it to pick some coconuts, but Rammo asked, "You don't have your powers right now. Do you think you can climb the tree without any trouble?" Sylvia scoffed, "Huh, are you underestimating my elf tribe? Climbing trees is one of the things I'm best at." Rammo stood below, giving her instructions, emphasizing the importance of using her hips for strength. By now, Sylvia had reached the coconuts, but the part of the tree where the fruit connected was quite thick. Sylvia said, "I don't have a knife. How am I supposed to pick them?" Rammo told her to try his method. "Just try twisting the coconut and see if you can break it off. Be careful though, don't." Before Rammo could finish, the coconuts fell to the ground with a loud thud around him. Only then did Rammo finish his sentence. "Smash us, why don't you?" Rammo shouted angrily at Sylvia, "Didn't I tell you to be careful?" Sylvia looked down at Rammo, still angry, and asked, "What are you talking about? I didn't even pick them yet." Up in the coconut tree, a crab claw was dropping coconuts. The coconut fell into Sylvia's hands. "Ah, I got it." Sylvia felt something odd. While she was speaking, she suddenly noticed a claw on the tree, but it felt like something had cut it off. A crab appeared, showing its excitement in front of Sylvia. It even made a heart shape with its claws. Sylvia was surprised to see the crab sending her a heart. Sylvia screamed, "Ugh, monster, monster, monster." She waved her hands in the air. Rammo noticed her reaction from above. "Huh?" Since Sylvia had let go and wasn't holding onto the tree, she fell down to where Rammo was. She landed with a loud thud and cried out, "Ah!" She had fallen to the ground. Sylvia felt confused. "Ah, my butt. Oh, why does it hurt?" Looking down, she realized she was sitting on Rammo. Rammo cried out, "Of course it doesn't hurt for you. I'm the one who's in pain." Sylvia was shocked to find herself sitting on Rammo's face and screamed, "Ah!" She quickly closed her legs. Rammo, still underneath, said, "Huh?" Sylvia blushed and awkwardly said, "Ah, you. Don't talk. Don't breathe either." Rammo, lying beneath her, whimpered, "Uff, don't make it harder on me." Sylvia blushed and shyly said, "I told you already, I said not to talk." Suddenly, Sylvia covered her mouth. She pushed down on Rammo's face, pressing her hand against his back. Rammo's whole body started to shake, as if he was about to suffocate. Rammo had passed out from the lack of air. He took a deep breath. "Ah!" Rammo sighed in relief. "Ha! I'm alive again." Sylvia blushed again and stammered, "Ah, you, ah, you, ah, you." Rammo turned around and said, "What do you mean, you? I saved you. After all, you almost suffocated to death." Sylvia blushed even harder. Thinking back, the whole situation had been unexpected, but it still felt like one of those embarrassing moments. She couldn't really blame him, but thanking him didn't seem quite right either. Ibet cried out, "Water." Both Rammo and Sylvia panicked at the sound. "Oh, I almost forgot about her." Sylvia slapped her hand down on the fruit with a loud thud. When it didn't open, Sylvia asked Rammo, "This fruit is so hard. How do we open it?" Rammo rubbed his chin and said, "Find a stone to smash it, or you could use your big holy sword. But if you're not careful, you might waste the water inside." Suddenly, the crab slammed the coconut with a loud crack. Rammo turned around, his mouth hanging open in surprise as he saw the crab had cracked the coconut for them. Do the animals here really understand human intentions? Sylvia also turned to look. Rammo split the coconut in half and brought it over to Ibet. He helped Ibet sit up so she could drink the coconut water. No matter how you look at it, at least they had water now. She was a spy sent by Lilith, and if she died, it could cause more trouble. Rammo poured the coconut water toward Ibet's mouth, but it didn't go in. Instead, it spilled out, dripping down her chest. Sylvia shouted, "Wait, the water's pouring out of her mouth. It's impossible to feed her this way." Rammo sighed, realizing she was so out of it that she couldn't even open her mouth anymore. "This is such a hassle." Sylvia calmly said, "It's not that big of a deal. If she can't drink it, why don't you just feed it to her mouth to mouth?" Rammo exclaimed, "Do you want to hear the kind of things someone with a completely calm face says?" Sylvia quickly stepped back. "Well, do you have a better way to feed water to a ghost? Besides, isn't mouth to mouth exactly what you've been hoping for?" Ramlo shouted, I've said this a million times already. It's to save her. Sylvia turned her face away and waved her hand, saying, all right, fine. But right now, we're saving a life. So hurry up and do what you have to mouth. Ramlo spun around and said, hey, Ramlo bluntly added, forget everything else, but you and Ibet are both women. Shouldn't it be more appropriate for you to do the mouth-to-mouth? Sylvia replied just as bluntly, who said that just because you're the same gender it's okay? If the person lying on the ground was a big burly man, do you really think you feel comfortable doing mouth-to-mouth with him? Sylvia made her point clear for me, unless it's my sister. I'm not doing it. Ramlo couldn't argue with that. Ramlo looked at Ibet, asking, so, do we really have to do mouth-to-mouth? Ramlo stared at Ibet's pink lips, then quickly stopped thinking about it. He took a sip of coconut water and said, forget it. Saving a life is more important. I'll just go for it. Ramlo began giving Ibet the coconut water through mouth-to-mouth. Sylvia watched, impressed. Oh wow. Ramlo blushed, embarrassed, and said, don't act like you're watching a show. I'm telling you, it's really smooth. Ramlo felt like he shouldn't be thinking that. Wait, that's not right. Finally, the water was successfully given to Ibet. Suddenly, Ibet sat up straight. Ramlo froze, surprised. It's done. Ramlo wondered if it was just a natural reaction, her will to live kicking in. As time passed, Ibet's kisses became more intense. Ramlo thought in his head, wait a second. He asked himself, what is she trying to do? Ibet this moment felt like a snake, while Rammo was like a stag, both facing each other. The snake tightly coiled around the stag until it died. It was the same here. Ibet was kissing Rammo aggressively. Sylvia, blushing from the side, gasped. Oh my. Finally, Ibet seemed satisfied, and they both broke apart. Then Ibet passed out again, but Ramlo caught her. He panted heavily, clearly uncomfortable. He jumped back, turned around, and thought to himself that they were terrifying. It felt like his soul almost got sucked out of his body. Sylvia leaned over towards Ibet, turned to look at him, and covered her mouth with a small smile. Just like a true demon, even your kiss is so intense and indescribable. Rammo helplessly shouted, don't praise stuff like this. Ibet rubbed her eyes and looked at the two of them, asking, Spirit, and that damn guy, where are we? Sylvia answered, Ghost, you're finally awake. Rammo added, we were teleported by the Kraken to a deserted island. You've been unconscious this whole time, so it's really good that you're awake now. Ha ha. He thought to himself, the things that happened in prison before must have driven her crazy. If she knew what just happened, she would definitely kill him. Ibet licked her lips and said, unconscious? I just remember being so thirsty. Well, why does my mouth taste sweet like candy? Sylvia glanced at Rammo and said, for that, you should thank Rammo properly. Ibet was surprised, thank him. Rammo jumped back, startled, He hurriedly grabbed Sylvia's mouth and ran away. It's fruit. You're dehydrated, so I'm just looking for some fruits that have a lot of water to help you rehydrate. Don't worry about it. Ibet looked to the side at a pile of coconut shells and suddenly realized, so I drank the water from this fruit. No wonder it tastes so sweet. Ramlo shouted, that's right. But you drank so little earlier. Drink a little more. Ibet picked up the water, feeling a bit uneasy. Why did it seem like there was something he wasn't saying? She looked at the two of them, wondering did something important happen while I was unconscious. Unfortunately, she couldn't read the thoughts of that jerk. Ibet looked at Sylvia, arms crossed, her expression startled. Wait, what's going on? I can't even read your thoughts. She shouted, where's my magic? Hearing this, Sylvia crossed her arms, looking as if it was obvious, and said, looks like you figured it out. We've lost our powers. We're just normal humans now. Ibet panicked. Normal humans? What could possibly make someone's magic disappear without a trace? This doesn't make sense. She looked at both of them, continuing, could it be the place we're in is the problem? This definitely doesn't make sense. Even my semi-divine magic has vanished. I'm sure I've never seen this island map in the game before. Rammo rubbed his chin thoughtfully, but why do I have this strange feeling that it's familiar? Ibet spoke with concern. I've read about places like this in books. Places that cause people to disappear mysteriously. Some places, just looking at them during an elemental storm will tear you to pieces. And there's the Forbidden Magic Zone. Sylvia touched her chin and said, the Forbidden Magic Zone? I've heard of that in my clan. It's a true desert of magic, but it's almost only a legend. Are we really going to encounter it? Ibet looked at Rammo and shouted, hey, thug, what do you think? She yelled loudly, you jerk. Rammo stood there, stunned, mumbling the Forbidden Island of Demon Magic. He suddenly remembered something. When you first see her, you'll feel a powerful aura around her. Only the wizards who travel with her know that her strength is tied to a past encounter. It's a place far beyond the seeds, full of life, yeah, as desolate as a desert. It's the birthplace of the gods. Raml shuddered and thought to himself, is this the place where one can gain divine power? It's hard to believe. The existence of something so close to demigod status brings out the worst kind of malice. The image of Atris, looking down from above, reminded him of the final boss in a game. But this wasn't a game. This was real power. None of that was the main point, though. The real point was that, despite everything, this was still just a game. Of course, it wouldn't be complete without a few beautiful scenes. But she would go after the players, even those pretending to be the Demon King, people like him. She used some strange potion that no one knew where she found it. She turned the Demon King into a woman, then made the Demon King suffer all kinds of humiliation. Atus sat back lazily in her chair, proudly saying, the Demon King has been crushed by me. No matter how much you scream, it won't help. Ha ha ha. The Demon King, now a woman, lay beneath her feet, saying, just kill me already. Rammo trembled and thought, this can't be happening. I don't want to suffer this kind of cruelty. Please don't make me go through this. Sylvia looked at him, uneasy, and asked, it seems like he's really scared. Ibet, with her arms crossed, glanced at him and said, pathetic. Is it just the Forbidden Island that scares you this much? Really? She pointed towards the forest and said, if this island is already in trouble, then isn't leaving here the solution? With so many trees around, we should be able to build a raft without any problem. Sylvia grabbed her hand and said, no, you can't leave yet. We haven't found my sister. We won't go anywhere until we do. Ibet frowned. Now's the time to look for people. We probably lost our strength, and we're not familiar with this island. Who knows, by the time we find someone, we might not even make it out alive. Sylvia turned to look at Rammo. If you don't want to go, fine, but you'll help me find my sister, right? Rammo slapped his head, waking up to the situation. Right, if something happens to her, we won't get anywhere. After thinking for a moment and considering Papa's situation on the other side, it was possible they still couldn't reach this island. But maybe, if they could uncover the strange things happening on this island, they might find the source of the divine power. There could still be a chance to turn things around. He stood up with renewed energy. I'll go with you. Rammo said seriously, we can't let Atris get hold of the divine power. We can't let things get worse. He ran after Sylvia and told Ibet, we'll go ahead. Ghost, you handle making the raft yourself. Ibet was surprised. Okay, I'll catch up. You guys go ahead. Perfect, she said, picking some mushrooms. Herver was happy. She had found some mushrooms they could eat. She turned around and said, now we don't have to worry about food. The mage Stacy looked at Herver and asked, Miss Elf, are you sure this can be eaten? Herver replied, of course. Our elf people are very skilled at identifying plants. This mushroom is not only safe, but it's also really delicious. She tore the mushroom apart and said, see? A deadly scent filled the air, making Stacy shiver. Do we really have to eat it? If we die out here in this remote place, there won't even be a gravestone for us, will there? A voice echoed. All right, Stacy, just trust Miss Herver, said the voice. Stacy looked at the newcomer and called out, Atris. Atris leaned on one arm and said, I found it. Not far now. We're almost at our destination. Stacy smiled and asked, Atris, you found the way? Herver held the mushroom and said, Miss Atris, I didn't expect the mushroom to be like this either. But don't worry, once it's cooked, the poison will be gone. Then, the tree behind Herver shook, its leaves falling in a panic as the nearby trees looked on in alarm. Herver continued, even if it's poisonous, it only causes a few hallucinations. Atris stepped closer to Herver and said gently, no need to explain. I trust your judgment, Miss Herver. You're a true wilderness survival expert. Herver waved her hand and absent-mindedly played with her hair. Oh, no, not at all. If I hadn't met you two, I'd probably be in danger by now, lost in the forest. I just wonder how Sylvia is doing now, if she's ended up here too. Atris grabbed Herver's wrist and said, please don't say things like that, Miss Herver. She held Herver's hand, the kind-hearted girl, and said, but you won't die here. The gods won't allow it. That won't happen. Once we uncover the secret of this island, we'll definitely find your sister too. Herver replied, thanking Atris. Atris turned around, raising her hand as she began to leave. Our goal isn't far now. No need for a break. Let's make the most of our time and head out. Herver watched her walk away and sighed with a smile. Miss Atris is truly a good person. She was both generous and warm, yet still maintained an air of nobility and elegance, the perfect image of a noble lady, though sadly, not exactly my type. Meanwhile, Atris licked her fingers with excitement. So smooth, so soft, so warm. The hands of a spirit truly are different. And they're sisters. If the older one is this beautiful, the younger one must be just as stunning, right? I can't even wait to see her. Her body heated up, her chest rising, and she exhaled a warm breath. But now is not the time to get excited. We have to wait until we gather the power to defeat the Demon Lord. She clapped her hands in satisfaction. I just want to bring everyone in the world into my harem. Atris crossed her arms, deep in thought. The ring on her finger glowed and a figure appeared in the stone. Atris, don't forget the true purpose of this journey. Atris smirked confidently. Of course I won't forget. Isn't it just the legacy left behind by the true god? That's already destined to be mine. The woman spoke with concern. Ha, you're getting too arrogant. This place is an ungoverned area hidden in the cracks of Gazma. They say it was accidentally transported here by the Kraken, but who knows? There could be others with the same intentions as you. Atris turned around, laughing. I know, old lady. The destination is just ahead. Let's handle it quickly and it'll be fine. The woman shouted angrily, don't call me old lady. The female poet behind watched Atris' departing figure and thought, how helpless I feel. Was choosing Atris as the heir to the divine power really the right decision? The three of them stood before a cave. Atris spoke, we've arrived. The ancient treasure is right here. They entered the cave. Stacy said, this is a newly formed land, so it's inside a mountain, even better. The treasure map you got is definitely the real deal. Herver, looking confused, asked, treasure map. Stacy replied, yeah. Atris bought a treasure map from a street vendor. We've been following it to get to this island. It was a long journey, though. Luckily, after I slept for a day and a night on the sea, we finally made it to the island. Herver hesitated. Street vendor, should I state her lucky or just bold? Herver, walking behind, looked up and said, but it's a bit simple, right? I thought we'd find ruins of some grand palace or something. The person walking ahead replied, yeah, I thought we'd see piles of gold coins stacked up into small mountains. Atris, leading the group, said no. Even if there were 100,000 mountains of gold, they wouldn't be as valuable as the treasure ahead. The female poet appeared again from the ring, speaking to Atris, stop talking and get on with it. The night is long and full of dreams. Quickly cast the magic I gave you and summon the true god that was left behind. Atris frowned. So troublesome. Fine, I'll do it. What's there to be afraid of at this point? She took out a talisman and said to the other two, you two step back a bit. I'm about to perform an ancient ritual. O power that sleeps in this place, whisper, open your eyes, wake up. I will offer the name Atris, not asking for endless wealth, nor for a high status, but to bring you back to the present world in a supreme position, helping thee bury all enemies in this trial. The talisman fell with a rustling sound, but nothing happened. The woman was furious. I never said there was any kind of spell. Atris replied, that's what makes it cool and makes sense. The woman gritted her teeth. Damn it. The talisman glowed, and with a flash, a strong beam of light shone up, causing everyone to shield their eyes. Wow, that's impressive. Clearly there's no magic, yet Atris has activated the formation. Herver, standing nearby, thought differently. She believed it wasn't magic, but rather a force similar to the way the Queen of Elves is naturally protected when the forest greets her. It had nothing to do with magic, but was a principle of the world itself. That formation was the key to activating this place. The power is enormous. What is it that's here? With a flash, a huge hand radiating light reached down from above. Atris was excited. It's appeared. Looks like my soul has made a pact with the true god. I am the chosen one. The woman next to her reminded her, to be recognized by the true god's broken finger, there has to be something similar in your essence. It hasn't moved at all, which means it's not even looking at you. Atris, surprised, what? She was eager to prove herself, rushing forward. It was just a broken finger of the true god. How dare it look down on her? The woman immediately stalked Atris, panicked and scolded. You fool! Before you choose your master, don't reach out for it. Do you want to die? Atris, confused. Huh? What should I do then? The woman continued to explain, there's another way. Your semi-divine power might attract the broken finger. At that point, you forcefully bind it to yourself. If that happens, you'll have absorbed the true god's power. Atris turned to look at the woman and asked, is this really going to work? The woman replied, of course it will. There's no other way to attract it, except with the power of a demigod. She said seriously, wait until the broken finger gets close and chooses its master. Then, take the chance to grab it and absorb it, got it? Atris responded, got it. She reached out toward the broken finger, thinking, finally, a power that belongs to me is within reach. Boom! A loud explosion interrupted everything. Atris shouted, what? What's happening? The woman, also surprised, frowned and said, what is that? Whoosh! A figure of a man appeared through the mist. Looks like I'm just in time. Ramlo bent down and stood up, saying, I made it, as expected. His bare body showed off his muscular build, and his cold gaze made it clear that he was someone who would step into the spotlight only at the last moment. A moment earlier, on the island, Rammo was sweating heavily as he kept moving back and forth. Just a little more. Hold on a bit longer. We're almost done, he said. Ibet, lying underneath him, was moving just as much, saying it's going to fall off if we don't keep going. We need to push it in a bit more. Sylvia also struck a provocative pose and cried out, "It's so slippery. I can barely hold it." Finally got it in. The three of them were sweating like crazy, faces flushed as they kept at it. Rammo shouted, "Hold on. Push harder." Then fire suddenly flared up, revealing that they had been starting a fire. Rammo raised both hands in triumph. "The fire's going. I can't believe drilling into this log was so exhausting." Sylvia agreed, "Yeah, it really wore me out. I'm soaked in sweat." Ibet, standing next to them, also sighed. "The fish is finally skewered, and it's so slippery." Three people were grilling fish and chatting. Although if someone had seen the scene earlier, they definitely would have asked a lot of questions. "Rammo, you're actually pretty skilled." Sylvia looked at Rammo and said, "Not only can you catch fish, but you can also start a fire without magic, just using 2 sticks." Rammo smiled slightly. "That's the power of knowledge. Right now, we don't have any magic, so we need to eat a lot to replenish our strength." Ibet added, "The most urgent task is to leave this island. But with such a vast forest, do you really have a way to find your sister?" Sylvia half knelt and stood up. "Don't underestimate the bond I share with my sister." She rubbed her hands together to warm them and proudly said, "As long as I can catch her scent in the forest, I'll be able to find her immediately." Ibet was doubtful. "Does what you're saying really have anything to do with that bond?" At this point, Rammo spoke up. "We're also lucky that there aren't any dangerous creatures in the forest. Otherwise, with our current strength, we wouldn't be able to handle it. It was a small stroke of luck in the middle of misfortune. Not having magic felt really unfamiliar. This small island seemed almost cut off from the outside world, so it was probably unlikely that there were any large wild creatures. We should be fine." As soon as Rammo finished speaking, a huge brown bear suddenly leaped out of the bushes nearby, roaring loudly. The three of them froze, staring at the bear. "Just stand there? A bear?" The three of them scattered in panic. "Look out, it's a bear." The bear, just as surprised, also roared. Everyone yelled in confusion. "How is this happening so suddenly? Why couldn't it wait until we finished eating? Who thought it was a good idea to bring this up now? What's the point of all this? Who is supposed to understand? The urgent thing is to figure out how to drive it away." One of them shouted, "I can't die here. I have to find my sister. Even if I die, I have to see her first." The shouting kept echoing, and it was hard to tell who was saying what. The bear, just as startled, only knew how to open its mouth and roar. Sylvia held the fish spear and pointed it at the bear. "Don't come any closer. I'm holding the legendary demon sword. Many fierce beasts stronger than you have died at my hands. If you dare charge at me, I'll definitely cut you down." Ibet, standing beside her, also about ready to strike with her fists. "No, you're right. I'll make sure you feel it too, and you'll experience firsthand how fierce the flames of hell can be. You won't even have bones left." It was then that Rammo shouted, "Exactly. Both of them are crazy." He pointed at Ibet and yelled, "Especially this ghost over here." Ibet glared at him, confused. "What?" The brown bear's eyes turned red with anger, and it gritted its teeth. It had lost all patience and let out a loud roar. "You've made me mad now." Suddenly, the bear sat down with a thud, and its expression softened. Rammo stared bewildered. "What the hell? What are you doing, Mr. Bear? This move of yours is completely confusing me." The bear sat on the ground, swaying back and forth, making a woof-woof sound. The ferociousness it had shown earlier was completely gone. Now it looked incredibly cute. Sylvia rolled her eyes in disbelief. "This bear is terrifying. After facing our terrifying threats, it doesn't even flinch." Ibet was just as shocked, but she seemed calm about it. "Could it be? It just wants to play with us until we die. What should we do now?" Rammo spoke up. "Calm down. When facing wild animals, turning your back on them is the most dangerous thing you can do. That'll make them attack without hesitation, so we can't run away. We're in this together, and we have the advantage of numbers and experience. If we charge at it together, maybe we can take it down." Ibet agreed. "Right. If we run, we die. If we fight, we die. So we might as well go all in." Sylvia nodded. "I agree. The scar on my back is the shame of a warrior." Rammo anxiously waited as I counted down to 3, signaling us to charge ahead. 3, 2, 1. The three of us turned around and sprinted full speed ahead. The brown bear behind us, hurt and in tears, muttered, "I'm being abandoned." Rammo turned his head and said, "Oh, our fellow traveler, you actually thought we'd run away together?" Ibet, running behind, replied, Did you really think I was that stupid? Would I take a hit for you too? Our ghost tribe is the most cunning, unpredictable one around." She then turned to Sylvia and asked, "What about you? Didn't you say that elves value honor above all else and never lie?" Sylvia responded, I figured you two out. That's not exactly lying. But you know, when there are a lot of prey being hunted, the only way to stay safe is to run the fastest. Raml raised an eyebrow. So, Sylvia leaped into the air, her feet skilled in navigating forests, her body light and agile, moving effortlessly without obstruction. Pushing herself to the limit, she spun midair and said, "The forest is the elf's home." Raml watched in confusion. Ibet, running beside him, called out, "Hey, you idiot, did you know that?" Rammo's face changed as he heard this. "Wait, what are you planning?" "Don't say another word, I'm scared." Ibet, irritated, buttoned her jacket with a snap. "You should be scared." Her black tights were ripped by her strong legs. She tore off her jacket and took off running even faster. Ibet, the track and field champion of the Ghost Academy. Rammo, who had been distracted by Ibet's jacket flying behind him, had it land on his face, yelled, "Do you two really have to risk your lives like this?" A minute later, Rammo, breathing heavily and feeling his body growing weaker, muttered to himself, "Damn it, why is the stamina of those damn cats so short, yet they can still move?" As he was moving, a hand suddenly reached out from the bushes, grabbing his leg, startling him. Rammo looked down in surprise. Before he could process what was happening, he was yanked forcefully into the bushes and fell straight onto the heaving chest of a girl. Rammo, now resting against her chest, stared wide-eyed, still disoriented. After a moment, he pushed himself up, his eyes shifting to the girl beside him, and stammered, "You guys." Rammo felt a wave of emotion and tears well up in his eyes. His face brightened with a puppy-like smile as he spoke with relief. "I knew it. You wouldn't abandon me. Don't worry." He was about to say more when Ibet interrupted him. She pushed him away with a hand, looking at him with a confused yet sincere expression as she said, "The road ahead is blocked. Keep your voice down." Hearing this, Rammo felt a sense of disappointment. "I knew it," he muttered. Sylvia, who had been silent, stayed quiet for a while. Ibet then lay down on the ground, pondering and asked, "Stop wasting words. This place isn't safe. What's our next move? Where do we run now?" Ibet, lying on the grass in torn, ragged clothes, half covered, seemed deep in thought. Rammo glanced at Sylvia, who was pressing her hand to her chest, and suggested, "How about we check if the bear is still chasing us?" Sylvia, speaking in a calm, knowledgeable tone, replied, "No need to check. It's definitely chasing us. A lone bear in the forest is usually the most ruthless predator. We've entered its territory. If it doesn't find us and eat us, it won't stop." Sylvia shuddered, her pale face trembling as she remembered the fierce look in the bear's eyes. At night, someone had started a fire and a giant paw had been keeping them warm. The bear sat by the fire, crying sorrowfully and moaning, "Ah, Huku." Over by Ibet, she looked at Rammo with an annoyed tone. "Come here, you bastard. Don't you know a lot about survival skills? Think of something fast." Rammo frowned and replied honestly, "I only watch a few survival videos while I'm eating. I'm not an expert in survival. How would I know what to do?" She asked, "Then what were you talking about earlier?" Sylvia was silent for a moment before speaking firmly. "At this point, there's only one thing we can do." She began to undress, and both of the others turned around, embarrassed. Their faces turned pale as panic set in. "What?" they asked. Sylvia calmly responded, "What are you thinking? I'm not talking about that strange thing you're imagining." She quickly realized that in the forest, these animals relied on scent to track their prey. If we leave our clothes behind, it might stop the bear from following us. As she said this, she pulled off her small clothes. Sylvia closed her eyes, feeling embarrassed. "I don't want to do this either, but I have to move quickly to find my sister. Do you think I want to do this?" Raml looked at her. "This is too fast." Ibet hesitated, but then changed her mind. "Well, there's no other choice now. If we have to, we have to. I don't want to die here." Slowly, she reached behind to unhook her bra. Rammo's face went as pale as a corpse. Raml opened his mouth in disbelief. "That's way too fast." The girl with the naked body slowly approached him. Raml raised his hand, his eyes wide, stammering, If you're all undressed, then I guess I don't need to anymore, right? I'll just go find a place to hide for a bit." Ibet seemed uninterested and reached for the cloth wrapped around his waist. She braced herself against him, using her other hand to pull down his pants. Rammo's eyes went wide and his mouth dropped open, panicking. "No, don't." Sylvia also helped Ibet, saying, "You have to take it off too." He still refused, desperately holding onto his pants. After a while, a large mountain range appeared in front of them. Ibet and Sylvia, dressed only in leaves, stood not far away watching. Ibet spoke up, "This is the spot. We got blocked by this mountain." She rubbed her hand nervously, her face turning red. I'm so embarrassed. We got stopped, so why not just find a way around it? Why are we waiting here?" Rammo, naked except for his underwear, stood behind them, hiding his private parts with a rock, feeling helpless. Ibet frowned, confused. "And why are you holding that rock? You look like a weirdo." He awkwardly chuckled and replied, "Ha ha, just in case there are some unnecessary blurry effects. Sure, climbing up to get a better view of the surroundings would be the best choice, but none of us knows how to climb a mountain right, and right now, we don't have any magic. Sylvia didn't pay attention to the two of them. She was on the ground, carefully examining the area. After a while, she seemed to have discovered something. Wait a minute. I recognize my sister's scent. Ibet looked confused. Sylvia turned around and responded, no doubt about it. It's her scent, but there are also two other women with her. They came through here around the mountain. At this point, Ibet just stared at her, impressed. He gave a sheepish smile and said, what's the logic behind her tracking ability? Rammo, who was behind them, gave a suspicious glance and muttered, it's quite the unique skill. Sylvia quickly pointed ahead and said, right now, they're in the mountain. The mountain blocked their path, and suddenly, a surge of energy shot up from the mouth of the mountain, heading straight into the sky. Ibet, feeling a bit alarmed at the sight, tapped Rammo on the shoulder and softly said, what's going on now? Rammo froze for a moment, deep in thought, then murmured, wait, Sylvia mentioned two other women. Could it be that Atris and the others are already on the island? Rammo looked towards the mountain and thought to himself, that light over there is part of the Brave Power ritual. Once the ritual is complete, suddenly his mind raced and he imagined the scene of Atris with the girl, both of them completely naked. Rammo's panic grew even worse. As the ritual continued in his thoughts, his mind kept going back to the girl who was making noise. He got so distracted that the stone in his hand slipped and dropped to the ground with a thud. Rammo couldn't process it. He was so shocked that he froze in place. Ibet, seeing this, shook his arm and asked, wide-eyed and confused, Hey, why are you suddenly so stiff? Sylvia clenched her fists in anger and said, damn it, what exactly happened? My sister is still in there. We have to find a way in quickly. No, a familiar voice interrupted, it's too late to find a way now. Rammo's face darkened as he slowly began walking. Ibet, puzzled, asked, you jerk, didn't you say you didn't know how to climb mountains? Sylvia bit her lip and murmured, He didn't say anything else, heading straight for the mountain, leaving the other two behind. Rammo spoke seriously. It's true, I don't know how to climb a mountain, but I believe. His hand gripped the rocky surface tightly. Rammo shouted, I believe. Rammo used his strength and incredible speed to quickly climb to the top of the mountain. Ibet, curious, asked, Did he have no magic? How was he doing this? Sylvia watched him, her mouth hanging open in disbelief. It seemed like she heard him say something just before the end. He said, I believe. Rammo gritted his teeth, clenched his buttocks, and angrily kept climbing, whispering the willpower of belief. Stacy was a little shaky. Nervously, she asked, Hey, did something really terrible just fall down? Should we go help? But Herver said we can't get too close. What should we do? Herver stared in surprise. That's Rammo. He stood proudly at the peak of the mountain, and Herver asked, did Sylvia go with him? She pursed her lips, her cheeks flushed, and nervously placed her hand on her cheek, deep in thought. If she went with him, what happened? Why is he in that state, half undressed like that? Meanwhile, Rammo stood at the summit of the mountain. He grinned with satisfaction, thinking to himself, just as I thought, it's Atris. There's no way I'm letting her have things her way. In an instant, his expression turned serious. It was a finger. No, the aura of a god. No wonder the warriors of the game had grown 100-fold in such a short time. It must be due to divine power. Atris faced a finger emerging from the light earlier, now pointing directly at her. For a moment, she felt a bit confused and stammered, a naked man with a divine figure. Is this also part of the inheritance? The old woman's soul, sharp-eyed, spoke up. Part of you is clearly demonic. Damn it, why is there a demon here? Has the demon found this place? Did they send an army to steal the treasure? She turned to reassure her, don't hesitate. Only by claiming the divine inheritance can you gain the power to fight against the demon army. Atris firmly replied, it's useless to urge me. I obviously want to absorb it quickly. But the finger that was pointing at Atris suddenly stopped moving. She was a bit surprised. It's not moving anymore. What's going on? The finger then shifted toward Rammo, who was standing nearby. The old woman thought in disbelief. The broken finger of a god is more interested in the demon. The deity buried in Gazma's territory was a legitimate god. How could it have any connection to a demon? Or is the demon's origin similar to mine, a demigod? But among the Demon King's army, only the Demon King himself is a demigod. Can't figure it out, right? Can't guess what's going on, right? Rammo chuckled smugly. But for you, from the inside out, from top to bottom, I know everything like the back of my hand. You want to tap into the power of the gods using the lost origin of a demigod. Meanwhile, there's a new demigod over here. Rammo stepped out of the smoke, grinning with confidence. Below, Stacy nervously asked again, I should go help Atris. But Atris won't let me, so what should I do? Herver started to sense something was off and replied, maybe we should just observe for now. I'm not sure what's really going on. From the cave, an unclear figure appeared, calling out, Sister, are you okay? Herver heard the voice and turned to look, her eyes lighting up as she recognized the person in front of her, grinning widely. Sylvia, you're here. After a moment, she noticed Sylvia's outfit and curiously asked, Oh, why are you dressed like that? Sylvia blushed, answering honestly, Oh, well, it's a long story. The three of us ran into some situations where we just had to take off our clothes. Herver thought for a moment and then said, Sounds like a long story, but the three of you couldn't help but undress. She covered her mouth, laughing shyly. Did you go ahead of your older sister, little one? Sylvia looked over at Rammo with a puzzled expression and asked, That's Rammo, right? What's he doing over there? Herver cheerfully turned his gaze toward her and quietly replied, Not sure. After he fell from up there, he's been like that with Atris. Is there something wrong? Stacy seemed to realize something and asked again, Wait, could it be that the guy with the cat head is with the young spirit lady? Herver looked back at her with a firm gaze and said, That's right. We don't know exactly what happened, but he's not a bad guy. We can vouch for that. Atris shouted, Stop. She pulled a crossbow from somewhere and aimed it at him, her eyes threatening, If you take another step, I'll kill you. Rammo gritted his teeth and took a defensive stance, thinking to himself, This is bad. She still has that. Stacy looked at both of them and quietly said, It's fine. This won't be a problem. Herver put his hand to his mouth, awkwardly chuckled, and said, Yeah, I think so. Sylvia raised an eyebrow, confused. Has the ghost still not shown up? I told you, we should have just taken the detour. A hand grabbed the edge of the crater, and suddenly, Ibet's head popped up, scolding, You damn bastard, are you down there? Rammo recognized the familiar voice and looked up, Huh? She climbed up to the edge of the volcano, but carelessly lost her footing and tumbled back down. Atris looked up and saw a huge shadow, her eyes widening in surprise. What? She gasped, watching Ibet charge toward her, her chest heaving with each breath. There was a loud crash as the two collided, and they both hit the ground hard. Ibet landed on top of Atris, and unfortunately, her chest ended up pressed against Atris' face. Atris, furious, yelled out, Shit, what the hell are you doing? She struggled, crying out in pain. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts. Ibet slowly sat up, her hand gently touching the crossbow. She seemed to have noticed something. Picking it up, she curiously inspected the weapon. What is this? Rammo rushed over, shouting, Wait, Ibet, put that down. Ibet ignored him, squeezing a trigger. The arrow shot out, speeding straight into a large stone on the ceiling. Rammo groaned in frustration. Great, it's ruined. The arrow embedded itself into the rock, and the impact caused the stone to crack. The crack spread quickly, and soon the stone shattered, raining down like a shower. The sky darkened, and a loud rumbling shook the mountain as rocks and debris fell from above. Sylvia rushed over in a panic, trying to catch the rock that was about to fall on Herver. Be careful, sister. Stacy, standing a little farther away, was terrified. The mountain's collapsing. Meanwhile, Rammo was touching his finger to a golden finger that was floating in midair, making it glow brightly. The golden finger was hovering right in front of him. He excitedly shouted, I got it. Suddenly, he heard a loud rumbling sound behind him. A huge rock fell in his direction, kicking up a cloud of dust. Amidst the dust, Rammo's figure appeared with a faint glow coming from something he was holding. He raised the golden finger, making it shine brighter, then covered his nose with his hand, glancing at it and thinking to himself, So, the landslide covered everything up, huh? Lucky I wasn't crushed right here. Even better, I got the finger. Finally, I can relax. As he quietly celebrated, Atris appeared out of nowhere. She shouted, Give me the god's finger. Without hesitation, she lunged at Rammo. He panicked and yelled, Why are you here too? Calm down. Maybe we can talk this out. Atris clung tightly to him, determined. There's nothing to discuss with a demon like you. Atris' chest pressed against his face as she tried to wrestle the god's finger away from him. Stop touching me. Ed. A faint, powerless voice echoed in Atris' ear. The finger has already chosen its master. Trying to take it from him is useless. You can only kill him to get it. Otherwise, go find your weapon. On the other side, Ibet groggily got up, grumbling, Ouch, ouch, ouch. What in the world just happened? Atris' seductive chest was still pressed against his face. He was surprised, thinking, Ibet is here too. He yelled out, Ibet, where's the weapon you just picked up? Ibet turned around in shock and looked at him. Weapon? A crossbow was lying in the corner. Both Ibet and Atris turned their eyes toward the gun in the corner of the cave. They rushed toward it, but it seemed Ibet was faster. Rammo, with his fingers raised in a confident gesture, chuckled smugly. Ha ha, looks like you've forgotten what's most important right now. He tightened his grip on his finger, and suddenly there were loud, surprised voices. Who's grabbing my butt? You got the wrong one. Don't pull my pants. Yeah, stop pulling my pants. A chaotic brawl broke out between the three of them, and it looked ridiculously funny. Atris screams, stop pulling on the clothes, they're about to rip. In the middle, Rammo panicked, holding his pants with one hand and shouting loudly toward Ibet, what time is it? Why are you still focusing on me? Ibet fought back, pulling and protesting, don't tell me what to do. Whose hand is in my mouth? I told you not to pull the clothes. Wait, where are you touching? Ah, disgusting. Atris, her clothes all over the place, gritted her teeth, flew up, and kicked Rammo in the head, causing him to crash into Ibet's chest. She pulled out her golden finger and commanded, turn off the lights. Haha, you're so annoying, I'll risk it with you. Don't stop. It's about to break. Let me go, it's about to break, it's about to break. Ha, where's the other person? While the two of them were fighting each other, when did Ibet step out? She ordered, don't move. Hearing the voice, both of them jumped in surprise. Ha, Rammo, stunned, screamed out loud. Yeah, yes, sir. Oh yeah, good job, haha. Since when did Ibet point a gun at them? She thought to herself, they're so dumb. Atris spoke up. Ha, it's my weapon and I don't even know about it. You've already fired it once. Even if you get it, it's useless. Ibet then decided to test. Let's see first. Atris quickly got up, raised both hands, leaving Rammo still lying flat. No, I'm sorry. Oh, try it. I know how incredible that thing is. In the game, Atris relied on her unbelievable combat power and that weapon. She made a straight path of kills from outside the city to right in front of the Demon King. As long as there wasn't a cooldown period, it looked ordinary, but it could break through the Demon King's defenses. Its level of power was so unbelievable that even the scriptwriters didn't know how to explain it, so they just used those three magical words, genuine ancient artifact, the one that was conveniently bought from a street vendor. Rammo silently thought to himself, now that the god's finger was in his hand, her weapon had been taken away. His expression changed as he said, looks like this time. Before he could finish thinking, Ibet raised her gun at him, smiling smugly. I've won. She pointed her finger and ordered, take off your uniform and stand up. Her command shocked both Rammo and Atris. Huh? Your obsession. His face twisted into a menacing expression, looking both eerie and doubtful. Why is it so deep? If you keep going like this, the censors won't just sit back and ignore it. Cough, cough, cough. Sylvia hugged her, then asked her older sister with concern, are you okay? Herver replied, I'm fine. It seemed like the broken stones had formed a barrier, so in a way, it was lucky. Meanwhile, Stacy was kneeling and crying. I'm crushed. Hugh, I'll take all the clothes you ever wore and make a grave to bury them. The two sisters stared at her, pretending to think. I already found a beautiful spot for you, right next to the tavern of the other race. Herver reluctantly interrupted. I just heard something. It seems like they've set up another space over there. Their situation might be just like ours. It's fine. Stacy's eyes welled up. Really? Sylvia pointed ahead. Maybe it's blocked by these stones. If we still have enough power, we can break through it. Tear it down. An idea suddenly flashed in Stacy's mind. She shouted, I've got it. Sylvia and Herver looked at her, puzzled as she rummaged through something. She raised a bag and exclaimed, a big bomb. Herver looked doubtful. So how exactly can we store that thing down there? Stacy winked and held up a bag, saying, it's a magic bag Atris made for me. It doesn't use any mana, and you can store things in it. The weight stays on you, but it's really convenient. All of Atris' luggage is in here. She trusts me the most. Sylvia raised an eyebrow. Wait, didn't she just treat you like a walking backpack? Sylvia turned to Herver and asked, Sister, are you sure it's safe to let her set that off here? Herver wasn't entirely sure but answered, it should be fine. We'll just need to run far enough when it goes off. As long as Rammo and the others aren't right on the other side of the wall, we'll be okay. The two fell silent, deep in thought. Stacy remained sitting in front of the bomb. She pointed at it and cast a small fire spell. The sisters rushed over, alarmed. Wait. Meanwhile, on the other side, Ibet ordered, take your pants off and stand up. Atris, panicked, thought, she's a ghost, right? And yet she's acting like this in front of others, still hungry and grabbing everything she can. The old aunt agreed too. I had never seen a ghost so hungry before, but clearly the two of them were at odds. They were taking full advantage of this conflict to buy more time. I could feel my strength coming back. The old aunt reminded Atris, and hearing that, Atris quietly laughed to herself. Perfect. She quickly glanced at Rammo and said, how dare he steal from me? I want him dead. The old aunt advised, don't rush. My strength isn't fully restored yet. That ghost doesn't seem too smart. You could try to get her on your side first. Atris quickly agreed, saying, got it, got it. She stepped forward and provoked, come on, shoot me already. We're on the same team, ghost lady. Raml and the old aunt both jumped in surprise, huh? Atris confidently continued, once I get my finger, I'll officially allow you to join my team. Together, we'll save the world. The sound of a gun cocking echoed toward Atris. Oh, the ghost laughed, ha ha. What does saving the world have to do with me? And you think I need your special approval? You're really brave. Atris quickly spun around and backed away, shouting, ah. I'm sorry. I was wrong. Raml shouted loudly at Ibet, all you want is for me to take off my pants, right? Fine. His face darkened as he firmly said, I'll do it. Sweat dripped from Romo's forehead as he thought to himself and sneered, I can feel my magic recovering, which means Ibet's must be doing the same. But ghosts have a special ability. They can observe the flow of magic in private areas and use it to figure out a person's true identity. So, that means he grabbed the waistband of his pants, telling himself that once he took them off, he wouldn't be able to hide his identity anymore. He gulped hard. What should he do? Was his only option to ask Atris for help? He looked at Atris, causing her to call out in confusion. Ha! He stared at her, silently planning his next move. I'll distract Ibet, and she'll grab the weapon from Ibet's hands. As long as we break the situation, there will be a chance to wait for my magic to recover and then escape. Atris suddenly exclaimed, oh, I get it now. Rammo felt a rush of relief and raised his hand to acknowledge her. She gets it. But a moment later, he furrowed his brow, thinking, wait a second, why did she say that out loud? No wonder she's from the demon race. Such shamelessness. I get it now. She's suggesting we join forces, right? As she spoke, Atris started unzipping her pants. Rammo, sitting on the ground, was left stunned. Ha! Atris kept unbuttoning her shirt, but Rammo thought to himself, I've only had experience with same-sex situations, and this current scenario is just a last resort. Rammo screamed in shock. Who asked you? It was clear that they couldn't rely on this crazy, unpredictable explorer. Atris crawled over to Rammo, panic rising in him. He didn't care what happened, just anyone stop this. Boom! A loud explosion rang out, sending both Rammo and Atris flying through the air. Suddenly, a much bigger explosion followed, with its shockwave lifting all three of them into the sky. Rammo's face slammed into Ibet's chest. A hole had been blasted open. From the other side, a voice called out, Atris. Stacy emerged from the dust. I'm here to save you. In front of Stacy, Atris was sprawled out, bruised and bleeding, her face pressed against the rubble. Stacy gasped, ah. In a panic, Stacy rushed over to help Atris, who was unconscious and covered in injuries. Ah, how did this happen? Am I too late? Stacy cried, hugging her and sobbing. Ibet groggily picked himself up, holding his head in confusion. What's going on? Why is there so much blasting? What the heck? At this moment, Rammo was still face first in Ibet's chest. Ibet, furious, slapped Rammo hard, sending him flying. And you freak, why do you always do this? Rammo was knocked sideways, a tear falling down his face, unable to say anything, but it was an accident. He slowly crawled to his feet and asked Ibet, wait, where's your weapon? Ibet suddenly remembered, weapon. Meanwhile, Atris let out a wicked laugh. Ha ha ha, looks like this time. She pulled the trigger, causing rocks and dirt to scatter around them. Stacy flinched, her eyes wide in shock as both of them stared at her. Atris sat up, her voice booming, I've won. Ibet panicked, grabbing Rammo. It's over. Clack, 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 the sound echoed. Atris stared at them. Rammo's face turned pale as he stared back. Atris made a sound of annoyance. Both Ibet and Rammo looked terrified, but Ibet spoke up, confused. Oh? Atris huffed angrily. The two of them suddenly sighed in relief. Oh. Embarrassed, Atris tapped her head. I forgot. Without magic, this weapon doesn't work. Ha ha. Stacy, however, didn't seem concerned with what was happening. She was thrilled. Atris, you're still alive. That's great. Rammo panicked. Don't start remembering important things like this. Wait, a voice called out. Lady Atris. It was Herver. She raised both hands and said, this is all just a misunderstanding. Atris looked at her, suspicious. A misunderstanding, Miss Herver? Why did you help that demon? Herver explained, even though Mr. Rammo appears to be a demon on the outside, he's actually on our side with Gazma. There's no point in hiding the truth anymore. The truth is, Mr. Rammo. As she spoke, she subtly signaled to Sylvia, then turned her gaze back to Ibet and Rammo. He's the savior mentioned in our Eld's prophecy, and also the adventurer talked about in human lore. Ibet, confused, pointed at Rammo. An adventurer? Rammo, equally puzzled, pointed at himself. Me? Stacy replied, that cat-eared guy is the adventurer, but Atris has always said she's the real adventurer. She likes it when I call her the adventurer the most. Atris shouted, they're lying. Sylvia questioned, clearly skeptical. It's obvious, isn't it? If she keeps calling herself an explorer, has she ever caused any harm to the Demon Lord's army? Stacy wasn't convinced. Atris isn't lying. How could a demon be an explorer? Do you have any proof? Sylvia responded confidently, of course I do. Have you ever heard of the Black Knight? The Black Knight had once saved a convicted criminal, rescuing the nun Polly from the Demon Lord's army. Why ask about this? The image of the Black Knight carrying Polly as he walked out of the prisoner's holding area came to mind. Herver pointed at Rammo, because Rammo was the Black Knight. Rammo, taken by surprise, said, huh? He had no idea what was going on, but being called an explorer didn't seem like a bad thing. He happily agreed, oh right, everything you're saying is true. Stacy gripped her magic staff tightly and shouted, what are you all talking about? Demons are the best liars. The Black Knight could easily be a scheme set up by Lucifer himself. But Herver and Sylvia remained confident, insisting, no, Rammo isn't a demon, or at least not just a demon. That's right, it's a long story. A terrifying scene appeared with a demonic creature with a long tongue bullying the girl. Then, an image of someone holding a syringe in front of the demon appeared. Stacy, after hearing this, sighed, I can't believe it's such a twisted story. Atris screamed, I knew it was fake the moment I heard it. Why do you believe everything they say? She wasn't convinced and pointed at them, raising her voice. Even if all of that is true, it wouldn't be enough to make him hate the demon army, right? Besides, how could an ambush in the Demon King's castle not be detected by him? Could it be that he has some sort of deal with the Demon King? Sylvia rested her chin on her hand, thinking, a deal? Of course, there's a deal. You saw it too, right? Rammo, he's not bad looking, is he? Then she ordered Rammo to stand still like a model. He was startled. Huh? The ruler of the demon army, Demon King Lucifer, has lost all interest in the opposite sex, probably because of his supreme intellect and power. To him, other males are no different from females. Sylvia continued, as an image of Lucifer sitting on his throne, his gaze intense appeared. It was a morning, a strange encounter, a chance meeting almost like fate when Rammo and Lucifer accidentally brushed past each other. Lucifer looked at Rammo with a sharp gaze and a twisted smile on his lips, making Rammo feel like he was facing a disaster, just like how humans' mothers would react. Sylvia's story shocked everyone. Herver and Stacy blinked, eyes wide. Oh. Rammo was furious and speechless. Herver whispered, Mr. Rammo is still here. Is it really necessary to make it sound so exaggerated? Sylvia insisted, I'm not exaggerating. These are all reasonable details. Rammo stood frozen, his face blank. Tears quietly streamed down his face as he thought, if you keep speculating like this comic will have to move to the next area. But if it can help me stay firmly in my role as an explorer. He cleared his throat, gritted his teeth, and put on a reluctant expression. Everything they said was true. Herver pretended to be surprised. True. No wonder, when I was in the Demon King's army, the Demon King never wavered. I lost to a cat. She cried silently, and Atris asked, what is going on here? Didn't you always say I was the only explorer? The old woman spoke up. It can't be. They must have been charmed. The aura around you can't be faked. That guy is a threat, and he must be eliminated. Hearing that, Rammo's expression turned cold, his face dark with tension as he looked at them. The old aunt continued, this person is a threat. We must eliminate him before he causes any more harm. Atris thought to herself, don't just talk about it, go ahead and take action. The old aunt replied, wait a little longer. I'm not sure I can directly kill those two demons yet, but I won't wait much longer. Ugh, so annoying. Atris angrily said. Then she turned to Sylvia and said, Your Highnesses, the demon race is the best at deception. Don't let that evil demon fool you. Sylvia responded, Mr. Rammo's character has already been tested by our sacred relic. If you don't believe it, we can test it again. Sister, activate the truth stone. Herver nodded and then asked, Rammo, what is your greatest wish? Rammo placed his hand over his left chest and said, My unwavering belief in this life is to drive the Demon King Lucifer Morla and his army out of Gazma's territory. Herver observed the sacred relic on his chest for a moment, but there was no reaction. Sylvia said, There's no issue. Ibet thought to herself, a Dark Knight spy in the demon army, a half-blood, and now another explorer. Doesn't this person have too many identities? Sylvia pointed at the stone on Herver's chest and said, See, now it's your turn. Atris stood stunned and said, I. Sylvia asked seriously, "What's wrong? Are you scared? Afraid I'll expose your true face?" Stacy nervously said, "Isn't this just a test? How could we possibly be crushed by a demon? My biggest dream is to drive the demon army out of Gazma's territory." The stone on Herver's chest lit up and beeped, following the sound of the sacred artifact. Herver said, "Does this mean you're lying?" Atris angrily glared at the stone on Herver's chest and said, "My dream is to destroy the Demon King." The stone beeped again. Atris, frustrated, then said, "My dream is to become the strongest person in the world." She screamed at the top of her lungs, "A peaceful world." But in response to her screams, all she heard was the endless beeping. She helplessly knelt down. A dream is a dream, after all. Rammo, seeing Atris' situation, thought to himself, that twisted woman could even be called the ultimate form of perversion. Of course, I can't say that out loud. After all, her goal is to turn the entire world into her harem. But this was just a symbol. While the world after the Demon King's death was left unknown in the game's ending based on her behavior, some users on the forums had speculated that only someone with extensive experience in dealing with women's transformation potions could have searched for the recipe to turn a person into a woman or even change the Demon King into a woman. Her true goal was to feminize the entire world and then gather it all into her harem. Wasn't that more like the Demon King than herself? The more Ramlo thought about it, the angrier he became. At this moment, Atris, feeling helpless, collapsed to her knees in front of the group of elves. Sylvia pointed at her and said, "I knew it. You've been exposed. I knew from the start you were a fake adventurer." Atris felt completely insane. She grabbed a handful of her hair and said, "This little demon didn't just steal my sacred artifact, but now she's daring to impersonate me. Auntie, kill these two demons." Her eyes turned bloodshot with rage. Her Olad appeared and said, "Don't call me Auntie." Then, a massive surge of power suddenly erupted, accompanied by loud, thunderous sounds that shook the air. Stacy suddenly realized something and said, "Ah, is Atris about to explode?" Herver, confused, asked, "What do you mean by explode?" Stacy explained, every time Atris is pushed to her limits, an overwhelming force bursts out of her. Last time, when Atris was at the silver level, after exploding, she directly killed a giant dragon. The three elves listening to this immediately said, "It's clear there's something seriously wrong with a silver-level adventurer killing a giant dragon." Moreover, that pressure, it's no longer in the realm of the sacred realm. That's the pressure of a demigod. Right now, Atris and her old aunt have truly become one, an unstoppable, immense power. The two smaller elves, now terrified, said, "What is that behind her?" Stacy looked at the old aunt and said, "Ah, it's a death spirit. So Atris is a necromancer. That looks like a powerful being that's disappeared. But I've never seen this face in any ancient texts. Either it's someone who vanished long ago before history was even recorded, or it's a demigod from another realm." Stacy saw this enormous power and for a moment couldn't understand, saying, "What does this mean? Has Atris stopped being Atris?" Ibet looked at Rammo and said, "Hey, you idiot, why can she still use that power? Don't just stand there. Figure something out." At that moment, Atris looked at the two of them and said, "Miss Herver, don't worry. My only targets are those two evil demons." Then Atris stepped closer to the four of them, holding a deadly blade in her hand. She said, "Death is the best way out for you." With that, she launched a sharp sword in her hand, moving at the speed of light. "Die, demons." Raml reached out and caught the flying sword heading toward him, saying, "So you finally show yourself. I've been waiting for you for a long time, old lady." Atris turned her head and asked the old woman, "What's going on? Does that demon recognize you?" The old woman behind her replied, "Yes, a simple probing move like that scared him. He's clearly trying to trap you. No one can know about my existence in this domain. I'm an ancient demigod, older than time itself. Even a demon king would have never heard my name." Ramlo looked at the old woman and asked again, "Don't believe it? It's just a shame that you're even more special than you imagined. I not only know your ancient origins, so ancient that even the oldest books have no record of them, but I also know your name. Poet, am I right?" The old woman gasped in disbelief and said, "No way. There's no way anyone could know I exist." Atris, who had been listening but still didn't understand what was going on, asked, "What did he just say? What's going on here?" Ramlo raised his hand to cover his face and smiled in a chilling, terrifying way. He thought to himself, "You can't figure it out, can you? You can't understand, right? If I had the chance to stand in front of you like this sooner, I wouldn't have waited for you to come around later, calling out some strange kind of alliance to find me. Two demigods fighting each other wouldn't just expose our true identities. It would also drag the twin spirits into it. Though I can't strike directly, suspicion is like a seed. It only needs to be planted, and soon enough, it'll grow." He spoke up again. "Atris, you never once thought about what would happen if you kept working with her, did you?" Atris immediately responded, "What are you trying to say?" Rammo, gesturing wildly, replied, "Of course I'm trying to tell you. For a demigod who's been dead for so many years, what's the most tempting thing? Revenge against an old enemy, the ability to touch everything in the world with your own hands, to once again possess a real body, to be reborn. Taking control is the simplest and most effective way. That's why your body is like a piece of meat in the eyes of a hungry wolf to her." Rammo had just described the entire process and the reason why the old woman had approached Atris but couldn't say a word, so she angrily snapped, "Please, can you make your own judgments? Don't just listen to him talk nonsense." Atris stood there, caught in an unclear situation, hearing the old woman's words. She could only stare blankly, unable to speak, only managing to make a soft sound. Seeing this, Rammo continued to push forward, saying, "So, you're not speaking because you don't believe me? Or are you wondering whether what I'm saying is true or false? Let me tell you what that woman did when she was alive. Let me tell you the real truth." The old woman, furious, cursed and raised her hand to cast a magic circle, saying, "Be silent." With a loud pop, Ramlo thought to himself, "I've fallen into the trap." A crackling sound followed, and the old woman spoke again, "My power is enough to open a rift and teleport us. Let's leave here." Atris asked, "Ah," just like that. But the god's finger was still in her hands, and the truth he was about to reveal was left hanging. At that moment, the old woman angrily shouted, "Do you want to listen to the words of a demon? His identity is not simple. Right now, I'm not sure I can completely control him. It's just a fingertip, but there are other ways." Hearing this, Atris asked, but then she turned to look at Rammo. Clenching her fist, she muttered, "Damn it, just wait." Then, without another word, she stepped into the crack. The old woman didn't forget to call out, "Stacy, come along." Stacy, still unaware of what was happening, looked confused and asked, "Ah, so they're leaving now? What about the young lady and Mr. Rammo?" At that moment, Atris had already stepped into the circle and disappeared. Stacy finally realized what was going on and called out, "Ah, wait for me." Now, only the old woman remained. Rammo, noticing this, asked, "What's wrong? You can't bring yourself to leave." The old woman looked at Rammo and replied, "No, I just suddenly realized something. You're not from this world." With that, the old woman turned and stepped into the circle, vanishing in an instant. Rammo stood there, stunned for a moment. The two elves, who were hugging each other, saw this and commented, "She's gone," disappeared. Herver spoke up first. "Well, Rammo is a demon, of course. He's not from this world. What's so strange about that?" Sylvia added, "Who knows what they're really thinking?" Anyway, the troublemakers finally dawned. Rammo was still thinking about what his old aunt had said earlier. He quietly thought to himself, "That's not right. There are so many territories here, and very few people use the term this world. What exactly does she figure out?" The two spirits looked at Rammo and spoke up. "It's not safe to stay here for long. We should figure out a way to leave. Where's Ibet?" Herver asked, "Huh? Isn't she always behind you?" Rammo turned around at that moment. "Huh? Behind me?" He saw Ibet, completely naked, and she blushed, muttering, "Of you bastard." Rammo stared at her, and at that moment she was both angry and embarrassed, shouting, "Stop looking." Ibet, seeing Rammo staring at her, yelled, This is so annoying. Why is it only this jerk who can restore his magic powers?" Rammo looked at Ibet and said, "Why is it always you selling out the benefits?" She heard him and slapped out a powerful strike, saying, "You think I want this? Look for yourself." With a soft thud, Rammo shut his eyes. Sylvia saw this and said, "The cave exploded. I'll go outside and see if I can recover any of the items. Maybe the bear has moved away by now." At this moment, Rammo was holding his face and sobbing, saying, "Hey, you've ruined my champion." Herver sadly remarked, "I thought I could become their ally, but this is what happens. Is it really possible for another soul to take over a body like that?" Hearing this, Rammo lifted his hand to support his face and replied, "Who knows?" Herver asked, confused, So you were just lying to them?" Rammo responded, "Hey, how could it be lying? I was just sharing a reasonable guess. In the end, aren't they just feeling guilty themselves?" He thought that if she only wanted to cause trouble for the Demon King's army, she might actually be a very reliable teammate. But sadly, her goals still included him. While Sylvia was acting, she found the lost items, a set of clothes, and a large sword. By this time, everyone was properly dressed. Rammo raised his hand and pushed upwards, causing a clinking sound. A time rift appeared. Ibet saw this and said, "You could open a teleportation gate. Then why did we have to take a boat earlier?" Rammo replied, "Opening this kind of gate comes at a great cost. I won't use it unless absolutely necessary. I can open a teleportation gate. What's so surprising about that?" Ibet leaned in close to Rammo and said, "No, while your strength hasn't fully recovered, you've still taken a hit from a demigod. Given that, it's not that surprising that someone with your strength can open a teleportation gate, I suppose. Ibet walked toward the gate and added, I just wonder if you're starting to seem all-powerful. Sylvia cut in, all right, enough talking. I don't want my sister waiting too long on the other side. Let's hurry. In Sylvia's heart, she quietly thought to herself that she felt like she had forgotten something. Meanwhile, the captain's boat was still floating on the sea. He and the brown bear behind him raised their hands to signal a greeting. He didn't turn around, keeping his focus on the steering wheel in front of him as he said, ha ha ha, nothing can defeat a seasoned man of the sea, not you and the Kraken. Ah ha ha. A man and a bear on a ship, setting sail with the sails full, yelled out. At that moment, Atris and Stacy stepped out from the teleportation portal. Atris punched the ground in anger and muttered, Dan it, Dan it. Stacy, worried, called out to Atris. The old woman's figure appeared, saying, Are you done with your anger? Once you're finished, put away that temper of yours. We have something more important to do. Atris stood up and asked the old woman, Was everything that Demon said true? The old woman replied, He was just babbling nonsense, but there's one thing he wasn't wrong about. I do long to have a body again, to be silent for 1,000 years in the darkness. You can't possibly understand how desperately I crave a real flesh and bone body. But can a hawk really enter the body of a sparrow? If you want me to descend, your body is far from being worthy. Atris felt furious after hearing this, but couldn't say anything in response. The old woman continued, So now you understand why I've been gathering the lost remains of the gods, right? Atris calmed down and asked, What do you want? The old woman went on, As for that demon, I have some theories. Maybe he comes from another world, not from our domain, but from a higher plane where someone like us exists. Some call them the reincarnated species. I used to laugh at those who suggested this idea, saying they were just drunk and babbling nonsense. I never expected this theory to turn out to be true. It was in my mind first, but there's no proof, and you don't need to know what it is. For you, this is not important right now. Next, we need to head to the center of the Demon King's army. Atris asked again, What's the point of going to the center of the Demon King's army? The old woman replied, Don't you understand? Your status as an explorer has been challenged. Now you have no choice but to create trouble for the Demon King's army to boost your fame and credibility. What's even more important is that another divine relic is hidden there. At the Holy Cathedral, the bells rang with a clear chime, Kang, 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 as a disciple knelt before the Holy Master. Meanwhile, the bells at Bradley's side rang as well, one after another. He was absorbed in gazing at the Hearthstone's model in front of him. At this moment, a small bell rang at the place where the Saintess was. She looked out the window, gazing at the sky. Papa approached from behind and asked, Saintess, is something wrong? Without looking back, the Saintess replied, Papa, do you see it? Papa, confused, asked again, see what? There's nothing there. The Saintess calmly said, On the day of the execution, I heard that noble person whisper to me, and now the sound is the same, the divine aura is the same. I won't be mistaken. I won't missee it. As she spoke, she reached out toward the feathers gently falling by the window, whispering to herself, A god is waiting for me. After stepping through the portal, Herver stretched, feeling refreshed, and sighed, Ah! Sylvia, excited, cheered, You're finally back. The atmosphere on the continent still felt more relaxed, sister. So, where are we heading next? Herver cheerfully replied, Of course, we're heading back to the Demon King's castle to continue lying low. Rammo, a bit confused, asked, Huh? Didn't you already send out the intel? With such a good opportunity, aren't you going back home first for something? Herver pointed at Rammo and said, Of course we're not going back. I told you before, we can't let Mr. Rammo take risks alone. Sylvia rushed over and hugged Herver, adding, That's right. I'm her sister, so wherever we go together. Rammo couldn't help but think, You don't have to be so eager to help. It wasn't easy getting those two to leave, and now more people are coming. Honestly, I don't even feel like going back anymore. Well, guess that makes sense. Ibet, standing by, asked, What about you? Rammo hesitated and answered, I need to go see the Saintess. There's some intel I need to exchange with her. He thought to himself, You're asking where I'm going? Obviously, I'm heading as far away from you guys as possible for now. Ibet quickly replied, I'll come with you. Rammo stammered, You're coming with me? Why? Ibet responded, It's a secret from our ghost group. What, are you too scared to let me come along? At this moment, the two spirits spoke up. Well, then we'll say goodbye here. We'll meet again at the Demon King's castle. Rammo smiled and said goodbye. In his heart, he thought, I can't just leave without saying goodbye. At the Demon King's army territory west of the city, boss. Ramo's voice called out, and the hotel owner greeted him happily. All right, come with me. But I'm sorry, we only have one room left for 2 people. Ramlo thought to himself, this always happens when we stay somewhere, doesn't it? The hotel owner continued, if you want to rent it, you too will have to make do for now. There really have been so many merchants passing through lately. We've expanded a lot, but it's still not enough. Ramlo asked, why has trade suddenly picked up so much? The owner replied, ha ha, don't you two know? It's all thanks to Lord Bradley. Since Lord Bradley took charge, Marion's territory has exempted all trade taxes. Because of that, merchants pass through here constantly or come to settle. She pointed to a picture of Bradley hanging on the wall and smiled. This place has become a mandatory stop. At first, everyone looked down on it. I never imagined I'd one day be struggling with so many guests. But Lord Bradley has one very strange request. He demands that merchants pay their taxes with waste and garbage. I really don't understand what he plans to do with all that. Rammo thought to himself, anyway, the living conditions of the fly demons are a bit too hard to describe. You'd be surprised if you understood them. But from what she said, the Demon King's army has already cleared a path for trade. If things keep going like this, I'm worried. He imagined the scene of the townspeople cheering. Yeah, wow, whoa. The Great Demon King is so honest. He thought to himself, this is getting terrifying. Violence was driving the Allied forces to be unable to resist the Demon King's army's attacks. While the food policies might slow down the Demon King's army's supply stockpiling, in the end, they would still bow to them. They were being completely cornered. Ibet stepped forward and scolded, why are you standing there dawdling? After everything that's happened, are you really still worried about this stuff? She walked over to the fruit table and said, even though we share a room, if you try anything funny, I'll make you regret it. As she said that, she grabbed a cucumber from the table and took a big bite, crunching loudly. Rammo quickly covered himself when he saw the situation. The hostess whispered to Rammo, hey bro, it doesn't look like this lady is your girlfriend, right? Rammo replied, oh, of course not. So, if there's another room, it would really help a lot. The landlady responded, there aren't any rooms left, but it's rare to meet such a beautiful demon like you. How about you stay in my room? I could even give you a half-price discount on the room. Rammo quickly shoved the landlady out of the room and said, the inspection team won't allow it. Goodbye. He slammed the door shut. Inside the room, host lay down on the comfortable bed and said, ah, this is so nice. The trip was exhausting. Rammo ran into the bathroom, but not before calling out, I'm using the bathroom for a bit, so don't do anything weird. Ibet responded from inside, I'm too busy to pay attention to you. Rammo went into the bathroom and locked the door. There was a click as he sealed it, then cast a silence spell. He pointed his finger upward and said, Flem, display the video screen. The person in the video is Flem. He asked, you've contacted me before, right? Is something urgent going on? Flem replied, well, it's not really anything major, but the commander of the Bradley army reported that they found something suspicious in Marion's territory, possibly an ancient relic. He specifically asked me to report it to you, your majesty. Raml asked again, suspecting it was an ancient ruin. The sound of paper rustling echoed as Flem replied, I deeply apologize for disturbing his majesty in seclusion with this uncertain intelligence. It's my fault. Ramlo's fingers, tracing the inheritance marks on his body, moved all over, causing him to groan. Aha! He kept digging through his clothes, unable to stop. Meanwhile, Flem was still reporting, your majesty. Raml interrupted, it's fine. I've reached a critical moment. Keep monitoring the ancient ruin. I'm quite interested in it. Disconnect now. Flem quickly responded, understood, and the sound of teleportation faded. Rammo kept searching through his clothes and muttered, this isn't a place for you to be. Get out. Outside, Ibet noticed Rammo had been inside for a long time with no sound coming from the room. She muttered to herself, what's he doing in there? He's been in there for half a day without a peep. She thought, he can sneak off by himself, did he? Then she rushed toward the bathroom door and banged on it hard. Rammo jumped up in shock, and only then did he say, it's ruined. I can't get out. Outside, Ibet heard him and said, no, I can't get out. She immediately fainted and fell backward. At this moment, Rammo had managed to open the door and step outside. Seeing the situation, he couldn't help but exclaim, ha! Meanwhile, at Marion's domain, a demon knelt and reported, there has been a report from the Demon King city. They said they will report the situation here to him. If things go smoothly, it won't be long before everything aligns with your wishes. The true master, Lord Barabop, holding a glass of wine, laughed loudly. Ha ha ha, good. Once the task is complete, of course, you'll be generously rewarded. Bradley knelt down and replied, thank you, my lord, but I cannot be certain if you will come here to investigate. I've heard that Lucifer Morla has been absent from the Demon King's army for many days. Barabop responded, he will come. This is the place where the ancient gods vanished. Even the smallest disturbance here will be irresistible. The gods' bodies were cut into pieces, and before they died, they laid down many forbidden traps. Such a forbidden place, even at my level as a demon god, I wouldn't dare step foot in recklessly. Bradley, stunned, asked, laid down forbidden traps before dying. Barabop brought the glass of wine to his lips and said she still hopes that her broken, decaying body can somehow come back together after death, and that from there she will be reborn. The power of the gods is not something you can predict. I'll help you set up a fake scene to lure Lucifer Morla here. You go ahead and prepare for the welcome. Bradley responded clearly and firmly. Barabop raised his hand and lifted the magical orb, which immediately cracked wide open. At the same time, he said, by then, a new generation of stars from hell will disappear right here. The sound of breaking glass echoed as shards fell to the floor. Barabop's hand dropped and a piece of glass reflected Bradley's face. He thought to himself, after visiting the invincible fortress, it seems like Lucifer Morla has an unexpected long-term vision. He's managed to make both me and the Demon King his opponents. He really knows how to make things difficult. But it looks like all the intelligence we gathered wasn't by chance. Bradley stood up and left. As he walked, he thought about how he had sent the prisoners as ambassadors while suddenly retreating into seclusion, as if vanishing from the Demon King's city. Now that the divine ruins had appeared, Lucifer Morla had probably already been preparing for this. There's always darkness beneath the light. While everyone was still wondering why the prisoners were sent as ambassadors, all eyes turned to the elf. Lucifer Morla had disguised himself and infiltrated the delegation. He's already left the Demon Lord's castle, right? We need to prepare to welcome the great Demon Lord properly. Meanwhile, Ibet is lying in bed, sound asleep. Too big, it's too big, the mushroom's too big. She suddenly bolts upright and exclaims loudly, I won't eat the mushroom. Then she starts panting heavily. Rammo, standing by the door, sees this and says, Mushroom, you're finally awake. Are you okay? Ibet, still a bit confused, asks, did you carry me to bed? Rammo responds, of course it was me. Who else could it have been? Immediately, a pillow flies straight into his face. Then, Ibet rushes at him, hitting him repeatedly with the pillow, shouting, I'm going to drag you down with me. Raml raises his arms to shield his head with the pillow, explaining, Hey, what's going on with you? I saw you suddenly faint, and out of kindness, I just carried you to bed. Ibet yells back, you definitely did something unspeakable while I was unconscious, didn't you? Just like you were trembling in the bathroom. Shameless, shameless. Ravo stared at the person, then asked again, bathroom? I understand now. That was a misunderstanding. It's the broken finger I got from the island earlier. Just now, the finger ran into my pants. I only wanted to grab it. Who knew you'd suddenly burst in like that? Ibet turned around and saw the finger boldly holding a cup, standing there as if it was about to drink, with water flowing out of the cup as it stayed in that position. Rammo shouted, Hey, we're already like this, stop drinking. Ibet immediately caught on and said, Oh, so you put that thing in your pants? How messed up can you be? Rammo explained, I told you, it ran in on its own. Can you stop already? He was thinking to himself that in the game, Atris had absorbed it to gain the power of an explorer. If he absorbed it too, maybe he could level up even more, but just thinking about the fact that it still had some kind of consciousness made him uneasy. What if it really did take over his body? He figured he'd just leave it for now. Then the sound of the cup breaking suddenly snapped Raml out of his thoughts. Both of them turned toward the finger. It was about to fly out the window. Seeing this, Raml quickly grabbed it and asked, Hey, where do you think you're going? Ha, you little thing, you want to run? Rammo glanced at the small finger pointing and asked, What's that? Outside, a patch of blue light appeared in the sky. Both Rammo and Ibet were staring at it intently. At that moment, Rammo looked at the finger and thought to himself, That's divine power. That direction leads to the Marian territory. It was true that a physical body had disappeared from that place, and surprisingly, this finger was connected to that body. Originally, I had planned to have that divine being kill that idiot Bradley, but now this has appeared for me to see. There's definitely some kind of plot, but I can't back out now. Rammo spoke up, We're changing our destination. Ibet turned around and asked, To Marian's territory? Rammo replied, That's the place we need to watch over this time. It's also the oldest and most important sacred relic of our faith. The divine staff of Al-Kim, was it really this simple and humble? One person asked, Is this thing really a holy staff? The other person replied, How disrespectful. This thing, it's an ancient artifact that carries countless secrets of our faith. It's just that it has been corrupted by evil forces, which is why it looks like this now. This time, we must guard it carefully. We cannot afford any mistakes. Suddenly, there was a loud explosion from the roof. The two people who were talking about the staff now shouted, Oh my God. A large hole appeared and a six-winged figure descended. I didn't mean to damage the temple, the figure said. I just landed in the wrong place. The Holy Maiden laughed awkwardly and said, "I'm terribly sorry." The two people who had been in shock now panicked, shouting, "We're doomed!" And angels fallen and destroyed the temple. Before the Holy Maiden could say anything further, she quickly added, "Sorry. I wanted to speak properly, but it's been so long since we've met. Holy Staff, I'm so sorry it's taken me this long to come to your aid. So much has happened, and I don't know where to start. But the situation is urgent. I can hear the call of the divine. It's something related to the gods. To be safe, I hope you can lend me a hand. Please awaken." The Holy Maiden picked up the staff, which had returned to its original form, and said, "Come with me in Marion's domain." Early the next morning at the Marion territory, a massive volcanic crater stood tall between the mountains. Atris and Stacy stood inside the crater, looking up at the large opening above them. With her hands on her hips, Atris sighed and said, "The demons actually want to hollow out this entire mountain and turn it into a resting place. That's taking things a bit far." She crossed her arms and smirked. "But it's still in line with my plan. We snuck into the Marion territory without breaking a sweat and even infiltrated the demon's headquarters." Stacy pulled her hood down slightly to take a look around and asked, "But Atris, is the current situation really part of your plan?" Atris grinned proudly. "Of course." She placed a hand on her chest and continued, "I can feel the remains are really close, so close." As she was getting carried away in her excitement, a loud knock echoed against the stone wall, snapping both of them out of their conversation. "Hey, hey, hey." A man's voice shouted from in front of them. A man stood there, glaring at the two of them. "What are you doing? Hurry up and dig." Atris and Stacy quickly bent down and obediently replied, "Yes, sir." The man turned to leave, but stopped, glancing back at them as they dug and adding, "You two are damaging shared property. You should be punished and made to work for free for 3 months. But since it's your first offense, I'll let you off with just a few days of punishment. Don't put your luck." Atris quickly nodded and flattered him while continuing to dig. "Oh yes, yes, of course." She sighed inwardly, thinking to herself, who would have guessed that thing was considered shared property? Thinking back to a little while ago, a group of merchants stopped on the road discussing, "Oh, you're bringing so many good goods. They're fresh, right? All top quality, fresh stock, guaranteed to please the Lord. But be careful. Don't let the smell escape." Not far away, hidden in some bushes, Atris and Stacy were watching. Stacy, curious, asked Atris, "What are they talking about?" Atris stood up, her face serious as she replied, "It's definitely bodies. Those merchants are trying to secretly deliver them to the demons." She pointed ahead and said, determined, "We have to stop them from getting what they want." As soon as the merchants saw them step forward, they recoiled in fear, backing up toward their wagon. "Ah, who are you? What do you want?" Stacy quickly used her magic to control the wind. "Wind, hear my plea." The merchants screamed in panic. "Ah, ah, ah." She summoned the wind, blowing away the large tarp covering the wagon. Gale spell. The tarp flew off. What was inside the wagon left both Atris and Stacy speechless. Atris covered her mouth, nearly vomiting, her face pale as she thought, who would have thought the demon's tribute would be Menyor? At that moment, a man's voice came from behind asking, "You two aren't from Marion, are you?" He stared at Atris and Stacy for a moment, then spoke quietly. "Right now, there are some things we can't understand just with the eyes of humans. Lord Bradley is a fly demon, and those things were used as building materials for him and his army." Stacy was stunned. "What? Used as building materials?" She then turned to Atris, her face filled with doubt. "Earlier, you said those lights eventually fell to the place where the demons gathered. Does that mean we have to?" Before Stacy could finish, Atris raised a finger to her lips, signaling her to be quiet. Then she leaned close to Stacy's ear and whispered, "It seems like for now, this is actually a good thing. With such a large-scale situation, if it's here, there won't be too many people competing for it." After that, they continued walking forward. Atris glanced at Stacy and added, "Anyway, no matter what, I have to get my hands on the divine relic this time." The man, noticing that the two of them were still talking and not working, shouted angrily, "Are you done yet? What are you still talking about? Get digging now." Startled by his loud voice, Atris quickly turned around and responded, Ah, yes, right at the divine ruins, there's a long line of people, all waiting in line." Rammo grumbled, "Even this many people is too much already." Rammo and Ghost watched the long line of people that seemed to stretch on endlessly, and Rammo couldn't help but complain, "Isn't this supposed to be a sacred site? Why does it feel like a big clearance sale at a supermarket right now?" Feeling irritated and confused, he thought to himself, "Why are there so many people here? What exactly is Bradley trying to pull?" At that moment, on the high city wall, Bradley stood, his voice booming as he addressed the crowd below. "Everyone gathered here, please be quiet for a moment. When the crowd finally quieted down, Bradley continued, I know why you're all here in Marion. I'm not going to stop you from searching for treasure. He looked down, his gaze sharp, and spoke with authority. But I won't allow any of you to act recklessly on my land. The crowd of people standing in line listened intently as the voice of the fly demon echoed from the city wall. So I will gather you all here, and only those who pass my test will have the right to enter the real competition. One man, clearly unhappy, shouted out in protest, why should we share the treasure just because we found it? Who are you to test us? Others around him agreed, voicing their approval. Exactly. Before anyone could say more, Bradley raised the green orb in his hand and with a calm yet serious tone added, Oh, right. I forgot to mention something. He smiled slightly, then threw a fireball at a man who had spoken out. I will not tolerate any opposition. The man froze, panic written all over his face. Moments later, a thick cloud of smoke erupted from where he stood, followed by a loud explosion and a piercing scream. Oh, the people around him were blown back, staring at the man who was foaming at the mouth, dead before he even had a chance to gasp. Immediately, Bradley sent countless identical green orbs floating above their heads. The first round is a test of your observation and judgment skills. He spread his arms, looking down at them with a mocking grin. If you want to get your hands on the treasure, you can't afford to lack these two abilities. Hundreds of green orbs hovered in the air, causing a group to panic. Bradley raised his voice to remind them. I've prepared 300 of these orbs for you. They will keep passing through your midst. Your job is simple. Catch them as they get close. These 300 orbs represent 300 chances to level up. They looked up at the sky. Only 300 chances. The demon soldiers standing nearby quickly reminded them. That's not the main issue. How exactly are we supposed to catch those orbs? As the group began charging toward the floating orbs, Bradley whispered, Good luck, everyone. The loud explosions below were like fireworks, making him even more pleased as he laughed, watching the crowd scream and shout, oh. Hey, that's mine. Bradley, observing from above, focused intently and said, Then, my dear demon lord, where are you hiding now? Hearing the loud noise coming from the other side of the wall, Rammo curiously asked, What's that sound? He was about to move forward when a large wolf holding a sign and resting stepped in his way. Registration is over. Please head back, it said. Rammo blinked in surprise. Huh? As soon as the wolf finished speaking, the people behind Rammo clicked their tongues and sighed. Ha! What a waste of time waiting so long. Forget it. Let's go. Rammo hesitated and tried to persuade them, Hey, we're all demons here. Could you just give us a moment? Unexpectedly, the large wolf ignored him and started packing up. Opportunities are fleeting, kid. Time doesn't wait for anyone. Rammo paused for a moment, then slammed his fist on the table with a loud thud. He clenched his fist and threatened. Are you sure you don't want to reconsider? The large wolf remained calm, unfazed, and replied softly, Threats won't work on me, kid. Ghost patted Rammo on the shoulder, laughing at him. What era are we in, and you still want to threaten people with violence? Are you trying to lure the guards here? She stepped forward, pulling down her collar with one hand and said to Rammo, Just let me handle this. Rammo stared at her, confused. You? Ghost slowly moved toward the big wolf, sweetly calling out, Big brother. She leaned halfway over the table, revealing her seductive, fiery curves, then spoke in a teasing voice, Please light it up just a little. You're so handsome. The big wolf remained unmoved, indifferent. Without any change in expression, he casually lifted Ghost by the wrist and replied with disdain, Our standards, ghosts like you are considered the worst of the worst. You don't even catch my eye. Ghost let out a soft oh before being struck by another ghost, crashing onto the ground. Holy shit. Rammo, walking behind, stared at her in confusion. Aren't you supposed to avoid using violence? Ghost dusted off her hands and defended herself. It's not like that. If I didn't do that, wouldn't the guards be drawn here? Plus, I wasn't threatening anyone. Rammo looked around, scanning the area. After all these tricks, what exactly is Bradley doing here? Ghost walked ahead, stunned. Oh, that's... Rammo, following behind, noticed the person had stopped and curiously asked, What's wrong? In front of them, there was complete chaos. Among the smoke and debris from the exploding sphere, a voice screamed, Ma, I want to go home. Rammo gasped. What? One person was lying on the ground crying miserably. This can't be happening. How can we catch a sphere like that? Crying while holding the captain in his arms, he pleaded, Captain, you can't fall. Captain! The captain, with a small scratch on his face, smiled and lay in his subordinate's arms. What are you talking about? Then his eyes widened as he stared at him, almost as if in disbelief, and whispered, In the end, I've let the whole village down. My path ends here. The rest, it's up to you now. Hearing this, the subordinate cried even harder, desperately trying to comfort the captain. Captain, stay with us. You just got knocked over by the wind from the sphere as it passed by. You're fine. Captain. He pulled the leader into his arms and shouted, as long as we don't stop, the village's path will keep stretching forward. What are you doing, leader? Rammo, watching this tragic scene, twitched his mouth and said helplessly, what kind of mess is this? A loud laugh from beside them caught Ghost's attention. A guy adjusted his glasses and, as if highly entertained, said, you know, everything in this world operates by certain rules, and math is the key to understanding those rules. Raml glanced at the person who spoke. Another expert. The man excitedly shouted, finally, I've waited for this chance. Now I can use all the math that makes no sense to them to prove myself. Rammo looked at the math formulas scribbled all over the ground. Ghost, puzzled, asked, what is all this? The guy, still crawling and writing, raised his voice and declared, knowledge is power. He drew another line on the ground. The man mumbled, the point of impact for a ball, then pointed ahead and shouted with excitement, it's here. Suddenly, bang, there was an explosion where the man had been standing, causing Ghost and Rammo to quickly jump back in surprise. A green ball, having struck the man with the glasses, flew out of the smoke and headed straight toward Ghost. A hand quickly reached out and grabbed it. Rammo held Ghost with one arm, while with the other, he caught the flying orb, causing Ghost to widen his eyes. Oh, he whispered, then asked, the person in the smoke, do you still need this orb? Rammo glanced at the motionless bodies scattered on the ground, then muttered to himself, answering his own question. Looks like you don't need it anymore. A moment later, countless green orbs flew toward Rammo and Ghost. It seemed like this place was set up for some kind of trial. This orb must be the key to passing the test. Do you need help catching one? Ghost, still lying in his arms, looked confused. Huh? I don't need it. What's the point of taking it? She stood up and calmly explained, if, like you said, this place hides the relics of gods, you think Bradley would just let them be fought over so easily. Besides, anyone who can claim a divine relic must have extraordinary strength, at least at the saint level or higher. Ghost crossed his arms and glanced at Rammo. If someone is strong enough to compete with Bradley and brave enough to face the entire Demon King's army, then what's the point of this trial? Rammo stared in disbelief, pointing at Ghost, clearly shocked. No way. You can still think about these things. I always thought you were an idiot, only good at taking off other people's pants. Ghost threatened, opening his mouth menacingly. Want me to beat you up? Rammo, holding the orb in his hand, looked at Ghost, puzzled. I thought you didn't really care much about divine relics, so why are you following me? Ghost put his hands on his hips and answered with an indifferent look. I told you, it's a secret. Then, without warning, he lunged at Rammo, trying to pull down his pants, causing Rammo to panic. So, is this really all about that? Ghost clicked his tongue when he saw Rammo dodge just in time, letting out a smug ha. Bradley, standing by the city gate, observed everything within his line of sight. He watched Rammo and Ghost silently assessing them. Someone who could easily catch my flying orb. Are they close to the Saint Realm, or even a powerful being who's already reached that level? How can there be someone else at the Saint Realm in the Demon King's army besides the commander? He turned to the maid beside him and asked, what's the deal with those two demons who just entered the arena? Whose subordinates are they? The maid quickly responded, they're not on the list. They might have entered without permission. Should we deal with them? She was holding a piece of information about the demons below, which she shared with Bradley and then asked for his opinion. Bradley picked up his glass of wine, gave it a small swirl, and replied, no need. Inside, he was silently guessing, that woman must be a ghost, right? I remember the intel mentioned that there was a ghost unexpectedly called from hell into the division. He looked at the red wine in his hand and smirked. So that's it. Observing the two people, Rammo and the ghost below, given Lucifer Morla's background, it would be strange for a powerful figure of the Saint Realm to be secretly nearby. But who would have guessed that Bradley was staring directly at the ghost, arms crossed, evaluating her? Lucifer Morla, the noble one, had disguised herself as a female ghost. He raised his glass, took a sip, and scoffed. The disguise was truly intricate. Meanwhile, below, another figure appeared. As the smoke cleared, the person could be heard calling out, It was Polly, dressed in all black with her hood up. She walked in, looking around as she searched, then wondered aloud, isn't the Black Knight coming? Polly glanced at the pile of green orbs in front of her and sighed in disappointment. She dropped all the green orbs onto the ground, thinking to herself, so the Black Knight isn't here after all. I thought I might run into him here. She thought about the Great Holy Staff and sighed, feeling a bit frustrated. Even though I brought the Great Holy Staff with me, I still can't wake him up. If only he were here, I still know so little about the Divine Ruins. If I knew more, I wouldn't have to be caught up in this mess. The guards behind her recognized Polly and shouted, is that the Saintess? Is it really the Saintess? Polly stood there, watching them kneel and greet her. She asked, oh, who are you? One of the guards quickly replied, "We're your fellow knights from the Holy Maiden's order." He held up his Holy Knight's insignia to prove it. "Look." Polly furrowed her brows as she looked at it, then calmly said, "Holy Knights? I'm not one of your Holy Knights, and I won't be from now on either." The two guards, confused, tried to explain, "You must be upset about what happened, right? That terrible plot was all part of the Dorothy faction's secret plan. Even the Pope was deceived by them." The other guard added, "That's right. Everyone is hoping the Saintess will return." Polly turned and walked away, not giving any attention to their explanations. "If all you wanted to say was just these few words, then you can keep quiet now." A moment later, the spheres that had been lying still on the ground suddenly flew up, surprising her. A familiar aura surrounded them. This feeling was coming from above, where a figure with 3 pairs of glowing wings was flying. The guards were stunned as they looked up at the person flying in the sky. One of the guards spoke up, "The fallen angel has left. Should we follow?" The other guard looked up and replied, "Forget it. We just need to put on a show. This isn't something we can get involved in." He struck a dangerous pose, grinning with satisfaction. "With that powerful person around, they don't need us." A hand reached out and touched the brick. Ramlo knelt on one knee, carefully examining the marks left on the brick. What was that shock just now? The inheritance finger inside his pocket popped out, drawing Ramo's attention. He caught it and reminded it, "Behave yourself." He felt a bit confused as he watched it move. It was another ripple of divine power. Even it was starting to lose patience. Could the divine ruins have appeared on their own? The inheritance figure pointed in a direction, getting Ramo's attention. He looked up and saw Polly flying above. That was the Saintess Polly. Bradley over here also felt the massive energy wave. The shock just now was a ripple of divine power. He turned quickly, clicking his tongue. Could there be a rat sneaking around? Meanwhile, in the desolate stone area, a shovel-like tree kept digging relentlessly. Atris swung the stone shovel in his hand, focused as he said, "I can sense the divine relic is up ahead. Those fools can keep playing with their toys outside. The divine relic is as good as mine." Stacy, worried, asked the person in front of her who was still focused and muttering to herself, "Atris, the place we're digging isn't on the main route, right? What should we do if we're discovered?" Atris paused for a moment, then gave a dangerous look and replied, "If we're discovered, we'll just have to make sure they stay quiet. Now a word should slip out." Stacy, standing beside her, seemed a bit confused. "Ah, I see." Atris threw her pickaxe to the ground, clicked her tongue, and muttered, "Ah, we're too slow, but it should be here soon." She lifted her wooden crossbow, aimed it ahead, and whispered to Stacy, "Stacy, get ready to deploy the shield." Stacy, still a little dazed, couldn't quite understand. Hey, as soon as the shield activated, a huge explosion echoed through the mountain. Rocks and smoke scattered everywhere. The two of them stood in the thick smoke. Stacy covered her mouth and coughed, then said, "Atris, can we not take such risks every time?" She gasped and called out, "Atris, that's..." Her eyes widened as she stared ahead, her pupils reflecting a bright pinkish glow. Both of them looked toward the source of the light, where countless sparkling pinkish-purple crystals glittered. Stacy sighed in awe. "It's so beautiful. I never imagined there was something like this beneath Marion." She stared in amazement at several pink crystals that were constantly sparkling too many firestones. Then she looked up and said with emotion, "To think that such a huge piece could be used to create a magic weapon this big." After observing for a moment, Atris finally spoke up. "No, these aren't firestones." Inside her eyes, the images of the crystals reflected, and she slightly parted her lips, saying, "This is." A large crystal sat in the center of the stone cavern. Atris explained, "The heart of a god." At that moment, a woman appeared and interrupted, adding, "That's right, it's the heart of God. The power in this heart far exceeds the power in God's finger." Atris shot her an annoyed glance. "Oh, so you finally decided to show up." The woman crossed her arms and floated in the air, teasing, "Haha, you were the one who said you wanted to handle it yourself, so I didn't bother showing up. Though the process was pretty stupid, the result's not too bad." She opened her eyes wide, focusing on something, then quickly flew over to the heart of the god. "Oh, there's definitely a mark left by the ancient god on this heart. If someone tries to absorb it recklessly, the sealing curse will activate, and they'll turn to dust in an instant." As she spoke, she added her power and shot toward the heart. "Now, I'll start breaking the seal. You need to absorb the power from the heart of the god immediately. Understand?" Atris excitedly clenched her fists and shouted, "Haha, do I really need you to say anything?" She gradually moved toward the heart of the divine being and challenged, "Let me see just how powerful this so-called divine force really is." Stacy, worried, called out from behind, "Atris, do you still trust that soul?" "Did Mr. Rammo say?" Before Stacy could finish, Atris interrupted with a sharp shout, "Shut up. Don't bring him up with me." With an air of arrogance, she gritted her teeth and added, "That's just a demon. I'm the explorer, the chosen one. How dare it compete with me? Atris quickly followed the lady's advice, absorbing the divine power, and then boldly declared, the first person I'll kill once I get divine strength is him. Stacy looked on in confusion, seeing Atris' determination to absorb all the divine power. Why has she become like this? Atris flew through the air, trying to focus on absorbing the power, but when she reached out to touch it, the power recoiled from her hand. What's going on? She angrily watched as the power continuously avoided her. Why is it avoiding me? Why won't it become a part of me? The lady, equally puzzled, watched the scene and thought to herself, it's waiting. It's looking for a better option. But clearly, Atris is the best vessel. Why? The heart of the deity, powered by an overwhelming force, slowly pulled away, then slammed against the rock wall. The surroundings began to shake violently. Furious, Atris chased after it, shouting, wait, where are you going? A burst of powerful energy erupted, sending smoke swirling up and obscuring the area. Atris covered her face and quickly moved aside. Moments later, the heart of the deity flew toward the mouth of the mountain, soaring directly into the sky in front of Atris, Stacy, and the woman knight, leaving all three of them stunned. The woman knight watched as the heart of the deity flew away, then suddenly understood. So that's it. The demon who took the god's finger is nearby. She began explaining the situation, realizing the heart of the deity was now searching for other parts. Fuming with anger, Atris clenched her fist and shouted, damn it, that damn demon again. At that moment, a crystal, dislodged by the intense tremors, fell right where Atris was standing. Stacy quickly noticed it and rushed over, shouting, Atris, be careful. She shoved Atris aside to protect her from the falling crystal, but ended up getting hit instead. Ah, she cried, crashing to the ground. Looking at her bleeding ankle, she groaned in pain. But when she looked up to check on Atris, she saw her running off without a second glance, leaving Stacy in shock. Tears welled up in Stacy's eyes, and with a look of frustration, she turned toward the direction Atris had gone, murmuring softly, Atris. Right now, outside the mountain, the heart of the deity flew far away, quickly searching for the other part of itself. It dropped with a thud in a place not far from where the group of people and the woman were. As the heart of the deity stopped, it spoke loudly. Stop! Could it be that the vile mixed blood demon has fallen and died along the way? Looks like the heavens are helping us. The two of them ran quickly toward it. The woman ran alongside, reminded him, not happy. Stop thinking about things that don't matter. It's possible he's getting closer. The heart of the deity fell here to give him time to catch up. Atris, determined and unwilling to back down, pushed herself to run faster. Oh, this time, no one can take it from me. Just then, a flash of light appeared in the sky, making her pause. She watched the light like a bolt of lightning with divine radiance crash down right where the heart of the deity was, forcing her to step back. The smoke slowly began to disperse. Atris coughed lightly and looked at the figure that had just appeared. What is that? The high priest of the holy knights knelt on both knees in front of the heart of the deity and said, under the heavens, everything that exists in this world was created by the Almighty. He turned and shot a cold look at Atris, still standing confused in the back, and warned, you pitiful thief, the church's belongings are not something you should be touching. She raised the crossbow, holding it steady, and watched the figure in front of her stand up and say, what's all this rambling nonsense? A bolt from the crossbow flew quickly toward the priest, accompanied by a sharp command, get lost. He simply caught the arrow and snapped it in half, then stood in front of Atris, trying to stop her. Ordinary things have no effect on me. To keep your body healthy, please leave. Before he could finish his sentence, he exploded. Atris shielded herself from the smoke, then sneered, no effect. Ridiculous. The priest vanished, leaving only a large black mark on the ground. Atris slowly moved closer, speaking as she walked. Even though I'm your savior, that doesn't mean I have to wipe the asses of every single fool. She stood before the divine heart, gazing at her reflection in the crystal. And you too. Atris lifted the crossbow again, aimed straight at the divine heart, and darkly said, if you're so foolish and reckless to shoot straight into the heart of the divine like this, then I'll just have to forcibly absorb you. The divine heart cracked and slowly began to shatter. The woman behind her gasped in surprise. Oh, so you finally made up your mind. I should remind you, the process of forced absorption is very painful. Atris held the crossbow with one hand while the other began to gather power to control the divine heart. Her face was twisted with malice and cunning. To her, the pain she was experiencing meant nothing if it led to the power of the gods. At that moment, Atris noticed some feathers falling. The fallen angel Polly descended, surprising her. With 6 black wings, Polly fluttered down and fixed her gaze on Atris below. Atris smiled in delight and called out loudly, this is perfect. Polly the angel is an explorer who will save this world. Right now, I need to absorb this power. Please watch over the area for me, especially make sure no demons get close. Polly, frowning from above, began chanting a spell. While Atris was still speaking, Polly immediately summoned a divine staff and pointed it directly at her, warning, "Stay away from the divine relic. You are still trying to consume the heart of the god." Stunned, Atris shouted, "Hey, Polly, we're not enemies. We both want to drive the Demon King's army away, don't we? Also, I heard you want to create a world free from oppression and injustice, which is something I've always believed in too. I'm an explorer working to save the world." Polly ignored her words, glaring and warning coldly, "I don't know who you are, but you're not worthy of the divine relic." She sternly shouted, "Your soul is not pure. Let go of the divine relic." Atris froze, astonished. "My soul?" Polly used her staff to stop any further movement. At that moment, from a distance, Rammo and Ghost quickly approached. Rammo was running frantically. When Atris saw them, she fell silent and muttered, "So, you're really with the Black Knight." Hearing his name, Polly happily looked over. "The Black Knight, where is he?" Rammo and Ghost, arriving from behind, saw Polly floating in the sky. Ghost, surprised and slightly puzzled, asked, "Black wings? Could it be the fallen angel?" Rammo, equally shocked, whispered, "It really is the Saintess. She probably doesn't recognize who she is now, does she?" Bradley, hiding in a nearby bush, observed everything. It turned out the divine heart had moved here. Not only had Lucifer Morla arrived, but the fallen angel had come too. He watched the conflict unfolding before him and then looked over at Atris, who was still trying to absorb the divine heart. The final act of the drama was about to begin. Polly stared at Atris, confused, and asked, "You turned against the Black Knight. What do you mean to him?" Atris shouted, her voice full of anger, "Stop pretending. I already know everything." Furious, she clenched her fist and yelled, "So you two have been in cahoots for a long time. Two adulterers working together to stop my plans." Polly, embarrassed and blushing, waved her hand in denial. "What are you talking about? Husband and wife? We haven't even gotten to that point yet." The woman looked at her in disdain. This person really was a false angel. Atris, ignoring anything else, quickly pushed forward, trying to absorb the power into herself. Whether it was real or fake didn't matter anymore. She clenched her fist and said sternly, "You're about to face the wrath of the gods." Suddenly, her arm twisted, snapping with a loud crack. "What?" Immediately, Atris screamed in pain. She realized she was being hit back. Polly recognized the divine power. The others, including Rammo, stared in shock at the force moving toward them. "Oh no," Ghost muttered, closing his eyes and hiding behind Rammo. "Why is it coming for us?" Morla, however, seemed strangely amused. What's there to be afraid of? The next day, he simply used one finger to support the divine power that had just descended. Rammo, holding the finger of inheritance, smiled smugly and said, "I'm glad I could use it to absorb that divine power." Polly, not recognizing who he was, saw Rammo about to steal the divine power and quickly flew over, shouting, "Give the divine power back." Ghost and Rammo were both shocked as they stared at the divine scepter aimed directly at them. Rammo summoned his sword and used it to block the power from Polly's scepter. The two powerful forces collided in midair. Ghost, standing behind, spoke up in confusion. "Wait, why are you two fighting?" Polly, not happy, answered while still battling with Rammo, "Do you really think there's anything to talk about between me and you demons?" A moment later, she got closer to Rammo and sniffed. "Huh?" Rammo, nervous, sighed in relief. Thankfully she didn't recognize me. If she had, I wouldn't be able to explain that the Black Knight is a demon. For now, I just need to signal Ibet to keep quiet and quietly slip away. That would be the best outcome. While he was still calculating his next move, Rammo's eyes widened when he heard the Saintess call out to him, "Sir Black Knight." She looked so happy her face turned bright red as she stretched out her arms toward Rammo and then tightly hugged his neck, pulling him close to her chest. Rammo froze in shock, unable to move. Was his face really buried in the Saintess's full chest? Bradley, still hidden in the bushes, didn't expect this. Why is that demon absorbing divine power? Did I guess wrong? Lucifer Morla must have disguised himself as a male demon, but if that's the case... He watched Polly cling to Rammo, not letting go, his eyes wide with shock. What kind of relationship do Lucifer Morla and the fallen angel have? At the same time, Stacy struggled with her cane to leave the mountain and search for Atris. It was clear that Atris wasn't someone like this. She was panting heavily, clutching the cane and muttering to herself. It's not like this. Just then, she looked up and froze in horror. In front of her, Atris was kneeling in pain, clutching her shattered arm. Stacy called out, "Atris!" Atris collapsed onto the ground, trembling and weakly begged, I can't hold on much longer. Please save me." Her face was pale and in intense pain. She shouted, "Didn't you say before that you were a powerful demigod? Use your true abilities now." The woman, hovering nearby, spoke reluctantly as though it pained her. I told you, the process I described to you, the one to stabilize the flow of your thoughts, would make the divine power settle into order. Hearing this, Atris tried to follow her instructions. She focused, closed her eyes, and gathered her strength to try and tame the power. She struggled, moving through the motions, gathering, circulating. But after a moment, she cried out in agony, clutching her arm. I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't want your power anymore. The woman lowered her gaze, glancing at the screaming Atris, and scolded her with a frown. Useless. Stacy appeared from behind, her voice sharp as she confronted the woman. Even though I can't see you or hear you, you've always been the one guiding Atris, haven't you? Is this what you've done to her? She raised her magic staff toward the woman and angrily shouted, Give me back the Atris she used to be. The woman turned, surprised, to look at her. Huff. As soon as the words left Stacy's lips, she raised her staff high, summoning the power of her magic, offering a tribute to the abyss and praying to the god of shadows to take the one in need away. The poet couldn't help but stare at Stacy in surprise. That's it. She was horrified as she realized the power Stacy had just summoned could be harmful to her. Soul extraction spell. How do you know about this curse? Wait, stop. If you continue with this, you'll die too. Stacy paid no attention and continued to focus, silently channeling her energy. She didn't leave behind any visible trace, and as she drew on her power, memories flashed in her mind of the time she had been unconscious and injured. At that moment, she was surrounded by sparks and flames. As Stacy lay motionless on the ground, a pair of legs appeared in her line of sight. Atris stepped forward, reaching down to pull her out of the fiery circle, saving her life. Stacy never forgot that act of kindness, nor would she accept being brainwashed into something unrecognizable. She gritted her teeth, holding back tears, and continued chanting the spell. No sound escaped her lips, no words, and no stray thoughts. She focused entirely on leading the spell to its final and true purpose, death. The old woman pointed ahead, her voice exasperated. This is troublesome. The poet touched the girl's forehead and said, Even if you erase my existence, it won't change her condition. She added, She can still be saved. If you don't want all of us to die here, you better stop now. A burst of pink light surrounded them, and Atris cried out, Help me. The old woman warned, Stop shouting. Calm yourself first. Don't let it consume you completely. A loud scream echoed, Ah! A voice shouted Atris' name. The woman glanced at something briefly. She spoke again, You've ruined everything for me. No matter who you are, no matter what your intentions are, I can't let you continue. A pink heart-shaped image appeared. The old woman used her dark purple energy to speak. Release it. Let me see what kind of power the remaining divine energy can unleash. There was a crackling sound from the pink heart, and the other two looked in the same direction. Then both of them turned to look as well. Suddenly, someone grabbed the wrist of a possessed person and urgently shouted, Hurry! The Saintess unexpectedly looked down, and with a loud scream, she teleported. A huge explosion echoed through the forest. In the garden, sunlight poured in and Rammo jumped down. Swish! He thought to himself, that old woman really is insane, creating something so dangerous. Polly tightly hugged Rammo from behind and said, Black Knight, you've saved me again. He was startled and exclaimed, Ah! The fallen angel happily embraced him, pressing his head into her full chest. So this is your true form? I've finally seen it. It's been so long since we last met, and you never came to find me. She asked, Can I touch your ears? Rammo strongly objected. Of course not. Ibet watched the two of them and thought to herself, So if this is the Saintess from before, now a fallen angel, one of the two demigods of this land, look at what it's come to. Rammo shouted loudly, Is there some misunderstanding about this holy lady? I'm Rammo, an evil demon, he replied. Polly smiled, not really concerned. So the Black Knight's name is Rammo. The demon is just a disguise for the Black Knight, right? The way he looked embarrassed but didn't want to admit it was actually kind of cute. He frowned and thought, What's cute about it? No, I need to figure out how she saw through me. If she finds out my Demon King identity one day, that could be a real problem. Rammo tried to convince her, Look closely. My whole body is full of demonic energy. How could I possibly be a Black Knight? The fallen angel looked at him, then muttered, Oh, she added quietly, When you look closely, it really is. She smiled sweetly. I understand now. You, Black Knight, are actually a demon. No wonder you tried to hide your true appearance before. You were afraid you might scare me, right? Rammo was surprised. Even though I'm a demon, you still believe I'm the Black Knight. You still trust me. Why? Polly answered, You, Black Knight, I understand your concerns, but I know that you and I are on the same side. The fallen angel's eyes sparkled as she continued, Moreover, since I became a demigod, I've seen things I couldn't see before. Since that day, I've seen everything clearly, and it's been etched deep in my heart. The Dark Knight speaks, You have a soul unlike any other. The Saintess remembered the moment she faced off against the Dark Knight, still constantly praising Rammo. Rammo quietly thought about the image of a man, someone who could peer directly into his soul. Polly didn't stop. She kept praising him, lifting him up to the skies. If the Dark Knight has absorbed the power of the gods, then I can rest easy. You must have earned the recognition of divine will. Truly worthy of being the Dark Knight. She smiled brightly. She reached out as if to calm him, but even so, it was truly miraculous. Saintess, in the eyes of the world, I've betrayed the church, betrayed Rammo, betrayed humanity. I'm seen as a great traitor. And as a demon, the Dark Knight has also betrayed the Demon Lord's army, betrayed the demon race. I am seen as a great traitor among my people. She gently caressed his cheek, her heart laid bare. We've met, isn't that fate? Ghost, witnessing this scene, couldn't help but think, has the fallen angel already fallen in love with him? Ibet gently broke into a cold sweat. Does she not realize what she's saying? She thought. Polly pointed at the ghost, puzzled. Right, Mr. Dark Knight, who's the demon following you? Ibet gasped as a soft whoosh echoed, and streams of golden light surrounded her hands. The fallen angel's face darkened as she smiled in a menacing way, making Rammo, who was standing beside her, wary. If this was just a passing demon, she'd heard plenty of those before. Maybe it was time to step in. Ibet quickly raised her voice to intervene before she became the next victim. Wait, I'm his companion. I already knew about all this. The ghost cursed at Rammo when she saw him just standing there, doing nothing as the girl was about to make a meal out of her. Say something. Rammo sighed and held his head in frustration, reluctantly stepping in as her companion. Hearing this, Ibet was too angry to even cry. Enough with the forced support, she thought bitterly. All this nonsense is just making me paranoid. The blonde girl began to picture wild, ridiculous scenarios in her mind. Wait, does she mean a companion? A companion of the Dark Knight is some sort of demon. Constantly, day and night, was she implying? Feeling misunderstood, the two enemies immediately defended themselves. There was no chance to speak further when a deep, powerful voice interrupted and grew closer. The Grandmaster Nex approached, extended a hand in a formal gesture, and apologized for my rudeness. But I cannot remain silent. Without warning, that person drew strength from the staff, and countless clouds of smoke filled the air. The fallen angel frowned. I've already said I will not listen to anything the church has to say, and I won't repeat myself. He growled like an animal driven mad, threatening. Then the Grand Master Knight will be enraged and the explosive force. What a pity.